All right. Good morning, folks. My name is Ryan Bridges. I'm a public member on the board filling in today. The time is 9:11 on May 16th. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Diane, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Adler,
Here.
Dr. Becker,
Here.
Dr. Calhoun, Dr. Cartwright,
Here.
Dr. Lambden,
Present.
Dr. C,
Present.
and Mr. Zagaris.
Here.
All right, we do have a quorum.
Perfect. Thank you, Diane. I'd like to go ahead and welcome everybody here and everyone listening in to this May meeting of the Texas State Board of Examiners of Psychologists. Again, my name is Ryan Bridges. I'll be filling in today, so y'all get to put up with me for a little bit here. At this time, I don't have any other announcements, so we are going to go into public comment. I would like to welcome to the stand Mr. John Belamowitz.
Thank you. Good morning. Ryan, I appreciate you stepping in, staff, board, fellow Texans. I have to admit, sitting on this side of the table, it feels a little bit like attending your own retirement party and still showing up to work the next day. My badge still worked today, so I'm not going away. After nearly a decade of serving on this board, I've had the honor of chairing it since 2020. I'm stepping into a new role as the Behavioral Health Executive Council Chair. And today I'm going to take a few moments to reflect, say some thank yous, and to talk about where we're going from here. First, to this board, and to which way we're looking here, and to you guys that are not here today. I have been truly blessed to serve alongside some of the most dedicated public servants in Texas. And I say that because I've seen you guys behind the scenes and I know why you do this. And it's because you care about your profession, you care about the Texans that you serve. We've faced some very tough questions at times, sometimes very unpopular. And I've seen you lean into each of your responsibilities with integrity and a lot of courage. To the staff, your diligence, your discipline, and your grace under fire, and standing up a new state agency have kept the gears turning and the mission on track. And you guys are the backbone of this work, not just you guys in here, but everyone else on the floor today. To the public, thank you for showing up. Whether you came here to speak or to ask hard questions that were uncomfortable to deal with, or just to watch, your engagement is what makes this all work and grounded in reality. And we need more of that, not less. Regulation works best when it listens. And so as I take on this new chapter, I do so with a lot of awareness that this isn't just a personal promotion. It is a reflection of the work of this board. I stand on the success of what we've done here together. And it doesn't belong to any one person, it belongs to its members. It was your voices, it was your votes, it was your hours in committee meetings that did so much when we were able to come back out and tackle the problems that we tackled there. So very clearly, this opportunity is a credit to you and your leadership. Before I go any further on that, though, I do want to recognize someone else, and that's Gloria Canseco, the outgoing chair of BHEC. Gloria's leadership in standing up a new state agency was candidly, that's fraught with peril in this state when you're going to stand up a new state agency. Those kind of things can go very wrong, and when they do so very publicly. But it didn't, because she stayed mission focused. She never made it about herself, and she made it about the people, and she empowered those in the trenches to get the job done. That kind of leadership is rare, and I intend to honor it by carrying that forward. So this is another thing you're going to start seeing and hearing more from BHEC on this. While we don't have the biggest bully pulpit in state politics and state government, we're going to use the one that we've got. And this goes without saying, but I'll say it here. If you violate the trust of your profession, if you exploit or abuse the people that you're supposed to serve, we are going to hold you accountable very swiftly and very clearly. That's our job. But more than that, we're going to highlight the good. This weekend, I'll be speaking at the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride in Dallas. If you're not familiar with it, it's a group of guys that kind of looks like a Wes Anderson movie. riding motorcycles, usually in suits, raising awareness for men's mental health and suicide prevention. And so behind that style, there is something very serious. It's real people and a real community standing up and saying that you matter and you're not alone. And even more so than that, we're going to be talking about the professionals who show up day after day, changing lives in quiet and faithful ways. And some of those examples that I'm looking for and I've been talking to recently are like a social worker in a pediatric clinic, helping kids deal with child. I'm talking about counselors working with a veteran, dealing with PTSD, trying to make sense of life. Thinking about the psychologist in a rural Texas county who might be the only person for 200 miles that could provide those services. And something near and dear to my heart too is our child advocacy centers, who step in at the exact moment a child needs somebody to stand in the breach for them. And beyond that, something personal though, in my own family and my family of origin is intact, and we're all still here because of these mental health professionals. At different points, somebody reached in, they met us at our lowest and most vulnerable, and they held us there. And I'll never forget that. So I believe in this work. It's not abstract, it's not bureaucratic, it's very personal and it's sacred. And we're going to start telling these stories more so loud and proud for everybody to hear. So moving forward, you're going to hear me say this a lot in meetings. You're going to hear me say it in private. Staff is going to hear this, and the public needs to hear it too. In public mental health in Texas, you either provide mental health services or you serve somebody who does. And that's the standard. That's how I plan to lead. And so while I'm passing the gavel here, I'm not stepping away. I'll still be around. I remain in the fight shoulder to shoulder with each of you here in this room. Recently, Governor Abbott addressed his appointees and he gave us 3 directives. 1 was follow the law. 2, do what's right. 3, provide great customer service. And so that's what I'm going to be accountable to. We're going to be going into sunset towards the end of my term. And so I'll have a nice big fat report card on how we're doing. And when I listened to Governor Abbott, it felt like the echoes of one of my favorite Texans, Sam Houston, when he said, do right and risk the consequences. And I believe that this board has certainly led the way in doing right, and we've certainly risked some consequences. So y'all done that here. I'm going to keep doing it at BHEC. Together, we're going to keep moving forward. God bless you on this board. God bless our staff. God bless all of our mental health professionals in Texas. And thank you for your service to Texas.
Thank you, John. John, real quick before, sorry, I just wanted to say a few words to follow up on that. So I've been on this board 7 years this year. I've gotten to see how this board has changed, and I don't know if I can speak on behalf of the board, but I can speak on behalf of myself. You and I are in interesting roles being public members on this board, where this is I guess, an adopted field for us. This is not what we do as our day job. And so I think it takes a special kind of person to do the job that you've done over the past few years. You know, our role, especially as public members, is to be advocates for the citizens of Texas and to make sure that there is adequate and competent mental health services to those in Texas. And every single day that I've had the opportunity to work with you, I have seen that be your #1 focus. And personally, I think it's a credit to the state that you're stepping into this role with BHEC. Whoever, you know, the governor will have to appoint a chair to this board, but whoever follows in your footsteps is going to have very large shoes to fill. So just for what it's worth, on the level of the board, but then also on a personal level, appreciate your service to the board and to the state of Texas.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Interim Chair, would it be okay if I say something as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
So John, when you took over as chair, I might get a little choky up here, but I started to enjoy being on the board. You really helped me grow into being confident as a board member. You gave me encouragement, you gave me feedback, and I'll miss you.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm not going far.
Yeah.
Just far enough.
I still plan on blowing up your
Thank
phone
you.
on regularly, so, you know.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Totally fair. You know, I think I'll speak to the fact that as a psychologist, I think I speak for many in being critical of the fact that we had a real estate agent as board chair of the psychology board. And that was very challenging coming on as a psychologist to manage. And I will say that as someone who did not always agree with you, right? We had many a go around about things that we, right? And I will say, John, that I have a very healthy respect for the work that you did as the board chair. Because you have a way of listening and hearing the challenges that psychologists face. And while you push back respectfully. Because you understand the regulatory process and the legal process. And you really helped wrangle this board to the pressures of the regulatory side that we have to answer to. And I appreciated how much I had to learn about that and that I got to learn about that from you. But I also appreciate that you listened to the psychologist side from me. And I hope that you learned that from me as well. So we got to a really good working place, even when we didn't agree. And for that, I genuinely appreciate your service to this board. So thank you.
Dr. Becker, appreciate you.
So I want to say, may I say?
Yeah,
something? So I feel bad now, not saying anything. I'm the only one here present that hasn't really said anything in terms of, not that isn't staff. And I wanted to also thank you so much for your leadership, your courage, like you said, in doing things and taking positions that were full of integrity, but and serving the people of Texas. And not just the people of Texas, but also far and wide beyond our state lines. But doing what is right. And I appreciate the difficulty of that role, not having, the ins and outs of the discipline behind you. And I think that takes courage. You've always dealt, at least from my perspective, with each and every one of us, me in particular, I can only speak for myself, with respect. And this is a brand new position for me. I've been on the board now, I want to say coming up on, at the end of this year, about 5 years. And so I've learned a lot, and a lot of it has been from the staff. Everybody has been very friendly and willing to support and teach, and to your leadership in that particular role as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
I just
All
want
right,
to
so-
repeat all the things that everybody just said, John. You've really been amazing, and just thank you so much for the way you've held yourself, the integrity you've held in the role that you've had. It's been extremely challenging, and you've always faced those challenges. I've learned so much from you as well, and also with respect to the BHEC board, I've learned just so much from you, and just want to say thank you for all you've done.
Thanks, Dr. Cartwright.
John, I want to tell you that I miss you. I will miss you, and you're just the very best Texan, and you will do great for us in the council. And I just wanted to tell you that you have surprised me with your willingness to learn and knowledge of mental health, coming from real estate, which has nothing in common. But thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Singh.
John, I just wanted to say that I promise, being that we're gonna have a member of BHEC from our board, I promise that I won't take advantage of the influence that you're gonna have.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you everyone for all the comments. Thank you, John, for coming and speaking to us today. We're gonna go into the rest of the public comment now. We have a couple here in the room, so we'll get to these first, and then I see there's a couple people with their hands raised that are dialing in remotely. I'd like to remind members of the public that we have 3 minutes per individual. But at this time, I'd like to welcome Maria Del Carmen Needham to come speak. Good morning.
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, members of the Texas State Board of Examiners of Psychologists. My name is Maria del Carmen Niran, and I am the Area 4 representative and the NATS delegate-elect. And I'm speaking today on behalf of the Texas Association of School Psychologists. First and foremost, we want to sincerely thank you for your ongoing work and commitment to public protection in Texas. We see the challenges you face, and we appreciate your dedication to safeguarding the people of our state. As Chair Balamowicz has shared, the mission of TestBet is to protect the public from harm by regulating the practice of psychology in Texas. In that spirit, while we acknowledge and value the intentions behind the proposed changes to Rule 463.35, we do have significant concerns about the potential impact of removing explicit references to cultural competency and examples of appropriate professional development topics. The proposed language as written is quite broad. Our concern is that this could unintentionally weaken the essential requirement for licensees to engage in professional development specifically designed to build cultural competency. Without clear expectations and examples, some practitioners may unintentionally deprioritize the kind of intentional evidence-based learning necessary to effectively serve the diverse students, clients, and families in our state. Removing those explicit categories also increases the risk of inconsistent interpretation about what counts as appropriate training in this area. To help maintain clarity and support your mission of public protection, we respectfully ask the board to consider reintroducing clarifying language or examples in the final rule. One phrasing we'd suggest is professional development designed to ensure competency when providing services to all distinct populations, including but not limited to variations in age, disability, ethnicity, gender identity, language, national origin, race, religion, culture, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status. We would like to emphasize that diversity is not a negative word. Recognizing diversity is part of our professional responsibility. It reflects our duty to meet the broad range of individual differences that shape how people experience education and mental health services. Keeping specificity in this rule not only protects the public, but also ensures we uphold our ethical obligations as psychologists. Thank you so much for your time and thoughtful consideration. TASP appreciates your leadership and your commitment to safety, well-being, and dignity of all Texans. And as a personal, thank you, Chair Balamowicz. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Melody Marin. Am I pronouncing?
Marin.
Marin. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Melody Marin, and I'm a clinical psychologist licensed here in Texas. I'm representing myself. I'm here to express my opposition to the proposed rule change regarding the cultural competency professional development requirement. I attended the BHEC meeting in March and voiced my opposition to the same rule change, so I'm not going to reiterate the same points that I heard echoed in so many other public comments that day. I understand that the council believes that those opposing the rule change are just misunderstanding it. I also understand that the council believes that the modification in language is simply a clarification. I disagree with both of these things. Like the rest of my peers in that meeting, I thoroughly read the proposal, and I get that the express purpose is to open the requirement up to include other important populations like farmers and postpartum women. I agree that these populations are important, but I still find the rule change very problematic. While the council paints the rule change as a simple clarification, there is nothing simple about removing DEI-related language in the era that we are currently in. So many people in marginalized communities are feeling erased by cultural shifts and a constant stream of legislation that aims to strip away the supports that they rely on. By taking this language out of our continuing education requirement, we as a field would be reinforcing this erasure and aligning ourselves with a political movement. In the meeting in March, the council stated that they would be open to input about possible changes to the language. My request to you is that this Board of Psychologists lead that charge by voting against this rule change today to slow down the process and open the door for more collaboration from the clinicians that care deeply about this issue and have shown up in numbers to voice their concerns about it. Instead of dismissing those concerns as misunderstandings, as the council did, I ask that you take seriously the voices of so many of the professionals that you represent and demonstrate a spirit of collaboration and flexibility. I deeply value and take pride in the high level of academic and clinical training that I received as a psychologist. And this proposed rule change flies in the face of that training by de-emphasizing our responsibility to provide competent care to the most marginalized groups among us. There are so many possible ways we can extend our responsibility to other important populations without compromising our commitment to the most vulnerable. We can take a stand against the erasure of DEI during this critical cultural moment while still ensuring responsible treatment of groups like farmers and postpartum women. I hope we can figure out together how to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And then it looks like we have at least one person that's dialed in. Is that correct, Diane?
Yes, that is correct. Sandra Martin. Give me a second here.
And while we're getting Ms. Martin, Chairman Bridges, I just would note that board member Dr. Calhoun has joined us.
Perfect. Thank you. Welcome.
Okay.
right.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You'll typically find my messages much shorter than 3 minutes, fortunately, I think. I would say this morning, good morning, board members, and to those logging in and listening in as well. My name is Sandra Martin. I am a licensed professional counselor supervisor, and I speak in this meeting for Christian Counselors of Texas. In recent years, we have covered with any degree of consistency only meetings of the council itself and the Board of Licensed Professional Counselors. It's because there are so many of us LPCs in Texas. We are not isolationists in that we stick to that board. It's what we could manage as we began to look toward our government for information, for questions, for answers, et cetera, et cetera. We consider ourselves especially fortunate to watch the psychology board as it pushes back, quote, to prepare an exam that fits psychologists in the state of Texas. And I, at this point, would like to also commend your now former board chairman as he walked that process into existence, and your council chairman who gave us what is now folklore in Christian Counselors of Texas when she said, "We're Texas, we push back." That is folklore among our members. So we will be among you, especially as you prepare that step to prepare an exam that's especially for Texas. We like that a lot. We like that process, and we're going to, I'm sure, be very proud of what comes from that process. So we thank you for your service, which is really, in preparing your own exam, is really above and beyond what's required of you. And we look forward to meeting with you regularly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Looks like Dr. Sasha Ortiz is up next.
Yes. Dr. Ortiz, do you have a public comment?
Hello to everyone. Good morning. I was mistaken. I thought that I was not being shown on the roster because I can't see on my end because I'm on the agenda for other items. So I apologize.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other public comment?
No, I do not see any, and we do not have any callers.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, Diane. Thank you to everybody that spoke this morning. We appreciate the input, and we always want to hear the input from everybody. So we appreciate your involvement this morning. Next, we're going to move into informational items. No action is going to be taken on these items. The first item on here is the report from the board chair. That role is currently vacant. I don't believe there is a report from the board chair. I'll just to fill in on that, as I mentioned earlier this morning, I'm filling in temporarily in this role just until the governor appoints a board chair. That has not occurred yet, to my knowledge. So this is a temporary measure. So get to put up with me today. Appreciate any grace that y'all have with me as kind of figure this side out for today. Next, I would move to report from board delegates to BHEC. Dr. Cartwright, do you have anything to report?
I mean, we discussed the 463.35, that, we talked a little bit about that in our last board meeting. And then obviously on BHEC, there was a lot of public comment on that issue. Mainly kind of against that rule change. But obviously, I think it was voted to kind of move down for final approval on the board level. Outside of that, I mean, I don't know if there's been any news on the lawsuit with the social work board to BHEC. Daryl, did you know that? Has anything kind of surfaced there?
Yes, our motions to dismiss were denied by the district court. Pleas to the jurisdiction and motion to dismiss were denied. We are now appealing that to the 15th Court of Appeals, which is the new business. It's the new business court, and it's also an appellate court that handles all questions of constitutional and administrative law. So in the past, we would have gone to the 3rd Court of Appeals here in Austin, but now as a regulatory agency, we go to the 15th Court of Appeals. So that's where we're at now on that.
Okay. Other than that, I mean, we spoke about the jurisprudence changes as well, but other than that, Robert, did you have anything to add offhand? I know we talked a little bit about the strategy, and I don't know if we'll discuss that again today at all. I don't know, I didn't see it on the agenda, but we did discuss that, and there was approval on the BHEC side of things. So, but Robert, I don't have anything else unless you have anything you wanted to add.
No, I think that pushes us toward the next item, and Diane can give an update on that one.
Perfect. Yeah, moving right along, report from board administrator and staff.
Yes, hello, everyone. For SciPac, there's information in your packets there. As far as the SciPac, the newly enacted state is Montana, but they have not been effective yet. But they're in the works of that. As far as our temporary licenses for Texas, there's 942, and the temporary one to practice in other states is 67. So we're pretty steady there. For ASPPB, Robert attended our mid-year meeting in Montreal, Canada, and the annual meeting will be October 22nd, 2025 in St. Louis, Missouri.
And Diane?
Yes.
Do you happen to know how many states are in SciPac right now? I know I've got the commissioner sitting right next to me here. But,
yeah, there's 43 states.
43. Okay.
And 42 enacted ones. So there's 42 that are up and running with, able to issue the authorizations.
And Patrick, I had a question. I was kind of reading some of the materials. So it sounds like there's been some changes on the SciPac side of things in terms of how they're going to evaluate people that are applying. Is that right? Or is there any way you can clarify that a little bit? Because I was a little confused on exactly what they're doing there.
Absolutely. So the letter that's in the packet went out to all the other commissioners. There was discussions with ASPPB. They're the ones that do the evaluation for the e-passport. So you have to get the e-passport in order to get the privilege to practice through SciPac. And one of the criteria they were looking at is if you had graduated from an APA accredited school, that was the criteria. It looked for APA, and if you didn't have it, you weren't accepted. We looked at the statutory language, and we engaged with them to say, the statute doesn't necessarily require APA. It has a list of criteria, and a lot of them match up with some of the APA requirements, but it's not solely APA. And so they looked at it, and they agreed. And so starting July 1st, what they're going to do is if you have APA, you're going to meet these requirements. But if you're not necessarily APA, you can still apply. And the criteria is spelled out in the enacting statute. It's in chapter 501. It's in every state that that enacts this has the same criteria. And so they'll look at a list of criteria. So what it means is it's not solely APA. There will be potentially non-APA schools. Or people that graduated from non-APA accredited schools can get an e-passport and then get the privilege to practice interjurisdictional telepsychology. So that won't start till they're ramping it up and they're hoping to get it up and going by July 1st. And then there's some work that SIPAC has to do as well. But it's kind of I thought a significant change. So I wanted to share it with you guys. And then one other note, I did hear that New York's bill has actually moved. It's sat and has not moved at all. And it finally moved out of committee to another committee. So since there's been movement, it's a promising sign that it might pass in New York as well.
One of the things, Dr. Cartwright, about this change by SIPAC is California, one of their biggest objections to SIPAC has always been that it only allowed for, you had to have the APA accreditation in order to get the e-passport and therefore to participate in SIPAC. With this change, this now I think addresses a significant component of California's concerns. I mention that because that's going to be, for lack of better words, that's going to be one of our biggest interchange states right there. That's going to be one of the biggest states where Texas and California go back and forth a lot. We have a lot of providers that go back and forth there. So that could really, that would be a game changer. If this is something that addresses California's concerns and they become open to the idea of joining SIPAC, it'll be a game changer in terms of access of our folks to the California marketplace and access of, Texas's marketplace to the California provider. So I think we could both benefit from one another on that.
So as I understand this, it's really SIPAC is setting that equivalency standard like we have in our regulation.
So
Similar?
sort of,
Okay.
the e-passport, so the statute requires that you have to have an e-passport in order to apply to get the privilege, the TAP or the temporary authority to practice or the IPIT,
Yeah.
and so the e-passport comes from ASPPB. And so ASPPB, when they were reviewing their criteria for it, they were saying, do you have a APA accreditation or not? No.
You're done.
Then you're done. Yes, then proceed and they'll give you the e-passport. And then SIPAC then has to look and say, do you have an e-passport? Yes, then we can
Gotcha.
give you that. And so we spoke with them and said, well, the criteria is listed. And while it's similar to APA, it doesn't just solely say APA, because APA is not actually listed in the statutory language. So we discussed with them and they said they agreed, and so they're looking to change it, so.
Gotcha.
I'll give y'all one other little update. I was scheduled to meet with the New Mexico board, I don't know, it was a couple of weeks ago before I left for vacation. But I didn't, for whatever reason, they accidentally left me off the agenda, so we didn't get to talk about it. But one of the things we're exploring is reciprocity with New Mexico for psychologists. So just kind of letting y'all know that's on the board. We're in the discussions. I think one of the questions is going to be is whether or not the New Mexico Psychology Board actually has statutory authority to do reciprocity. And then of course they have a rule that they call it a reciprocity rule. It's really a one-way rule. It allows y'all to apply with them and gain licensure in New Mexico relatively easily. And I think one of the questions I'm going to get is, well, if we have that, why do we need to do a reciprocity agreement? What is it? Why do we need to worry about that? I got to point out, well, it's a one-way street. If you want your folks to be able to come over here, we all want to be able to jump across borders more easily. So we're going to have a discussion about that as soon as they get me back on the agenda, but just kind of let the public and everybody know that we are in discussions. I even had some discussions with Louisiana. I just haven't been able to move that ball anymore lately. It's a timing issue on that. It's not a lack of interest on anybody's part.
And we are good to go in Oklahoma now, correct?
Yeah, Oklahoma's online. You're already licensing people.
Right.
Do that reciprocity.
Well, and that's great news about, if SIPAC opens to California, then you're looking at like almost probably 95% of the population in the US.
Yeah,
I mean,
if we could,
you know, if you have,
if we could secure California and New York, you know, Texas, California, New York, and Florida, those are your big four. That's where, you know, the vast majority of licensees are. So that really opens it up.
nice work, Patrick.
Thank you, guys. At this time, we'll move into reports from committees. Are there any committee reports?
They're all in written format.
Oh, they,
Yeah, they're in your packets, but there's nothing formal to report.
at the next, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Diane.
I said, unless anyone had questions about any of the reports.
Hearing none. Next item is discussion on transition to free digital licenses and optional printed wall certificates.
So this is something staff's been working toward. It will still be several months in coming. Because we'll have to update the database and we'll have to update some configurations. But what we'd like to do, and we're just letting the boards know, in case for some reason y'all object, but I can't imagine, is right now, all licensees, when they get licensed, have to then put in a request to receive a printout of that license. They don't have anything to show for it automatically. And what we'd like to do is transition to a system where for the sort of regular license that you all have and can put on your wall, a regular format, that will just automatically populate into the licensee's profile on their online system that you can then download and print however many copies you want for yourself, not for anybody else. Just making sure that's clear. We of course will make sure that it is a non-changeable document, that it's a secure document. That's one of the things we're gonna have to do to make it happen. But that way you lose it, the frame breaks, you get a second office, you can go in and print a new copy when you want it. Now, there will still be the option to have the large, nice printed, sealed licenses, the really big ones. Sorry, folks on Zoom, I know you can't see it. That will be available as a sort of fancy option for a charge that you can apply and get that, and then we'll mail it to you, and it'll be all embossed and nice. So
For any license?
and we are going to transition that for all of the licenses we do. And so psychology, y'all have always had this option to have a nice big calligraphy license.
Psychologists.
Only psychologists, but the LPAs and LSSPs and the other licensees will now be eligible to print off a nice framed certificate. So I would anticipate that won't take effect until January, but we're moving with that.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. So next item we're going to move into is licensing matters. This is board review and possible action on appeal of license applications. I believe all of that info was in y'all's, in our packets.
So first up, Mr. Chairman, is the reinstatement application from Dr. Carlos Smith. There's two. It's a reinstatement of the LP and the LSSP. We would note y'all considered this matter at the January board meeting. February, whatever date.
Yeah, January.
January.
Mhm.
But there was a problem in the notice that was sent to Dr. Smith. And so we wanted to bring this back and allow him or his attorney to appear if there was any other information to consider. And it looks like they're both here. Oh, they're here in person. I was looking for your names. So, Mr. Chairman, you may recognize them when you're ready.
Absolutely. I'd like to welcome y'all to come speak.
Yeah, I'm Catherine Graves. I'm the attorney for Dr. Smith. And I know y'all are more interested in talking to Dr. Smith than me, so I'm going to make this very, very short. On my part, Dr. Smith is not seeking reinstatement for his psychology license at this time. We filed an amended, so he's only seeking his school psychology license back right now. And as I'm sure y'all are aware, there's a very critical shortage in Texas of school psychologists at the time when there's a burgeoning need because of, the counter effects of COVID, social media, just there's just a lot that children have to deal with in schools right now. And there's never been a question of Dr. Smith's clinical competence. He's a skilled clinician, and his license revocation had nothing to do with his clinical skills. And so we think he can bring a lot to the students of Texas. But because he is working in that school environment, it mitigates, I think, any financial concerns, which is where his license was repealed because of some financial issues that happened at a very difficult time in his life. He's worked very, very hard to kind of make up for that. He's reinstated, reimbursed any money, and has not had any trouble since. Has been in settings where his employers are very happy with him. He can easily be reinstated to some of his schools. And with that, I'm turning it over to Dr. Smith.
I just appreciate you guys having me here today. Thank you, members. Two things I wanted to really emphasize on is giving you guys a broader scope of how could Dr. Smith make this bad decision? And two, what has he done since that bad decision has been made to basically earn the trust of the board and the community? So I will quickly kind of tell you the little bit of background story. I worked 10 years after becoming licensed in the field, and for which I invested in the company in Michigan. It was very quickly learned during the shareholders meetings that I was kind of screwed over. Nevertheless, I made a decision to quote unquote get my money back by committing crime, which in my mind at the time, because I was very angry, very upset, very hurt, and I lost almost $250,000. I just wanted to get the money back. So it was never an issue of let me try to fraud the community. It was let me get my money back from this company that screwed me over. Nevertheless, that was from that point on, I had to pay for that decision. When speaking to my kids, speaking to other kids in the community, we don't judge our character when things are going great, right? Our character is not judged when everything is peachy, is going great. It's when we face difficult times. And I regret when I faced that difficult time, I made that decision and I paid the consequences for it. Since that time, I made sure the money was paid back, every dollar. Matter of fact, the money was paid back before any criminal things was even brought up, which is ironic, but all the money was always paid back. And the fact of the matter is, after the fact, serving a little bit of time, getting out, reestablishing relationships, whether it's personal relationships, professional relationships, I've done everything that I could possibly do. And thus, I continue to try to build the trust of this board members. One of the first things I wanted to do was reestablish my relationship with my children. The twins are, they are seniors in high school. They will be going to UT in the fall, right? The next thing was professionally. What can I do to prove to the board that some of these issues will never happen again, right? And I had opportunity to kind of stay away from the field of psychology, which is my passion. But I thought, how could I prove to them that these concerns aren't concerns unless I continue, even if it's indirectly, stay in the field? So I still have a business where I have about 7 to 9 professional licenses under me within my company that is licensed by this board that has wrote recommendations for me because they know the full scope of the situation. So, and they are just like everyone else is very careful and concerned about their license when they go into a profession, when they go into a job, and when they go into a career, and they still felt a need to write a recommendation for me. Issues with billing, we still bill every single day. Now, do I take extra cautionary measures? Absolutely. My workers and my colleagues, they know I am anal. We just can't make any mistakes because of my history and because of my past. And we continue to do that. We continue to work hard. We continue to serve the community. But I make no explanations, or I make no excuses for the decision I made back in 2018. And so I just want to say, if not today, I will continue to build the trust of the community, build the trust of these members, to maybe one day get my license back. So I appreciate it. I really do appreciate the opportunity to kind of come up here, humble myself, and kind of give you the full scope of the situation.
Thank you for being here. I'd like to open up the floor for questions.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Morning.
Good morning.
So I'm a little unclear, and maybe you could clarify for me, and maybe if anybody else has the same question. So I understand that you have a company and that you have other mental health professionals, I think psychologists that you said, that are working under you. Is that true so far?
Well, psychologists, licensed clinical social workers, LPCs.
Okay,
Yes.
so mental health professionals.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So can you tell me your role? It sounds more like a business role at this point.
It is a business role. I answer phones, I make copies, I schedule, I do a lot of the indirect work. So, and sometimes they come to me for advice, not, professional advice, but just, because I've been in the field long. And I make sure that, paperwork is appropriately done, billing is appropriately done. So it's more of an indirect business role.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
Any other? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna ask if you've done any work or remedial work, CEs or anything like that on, I guess, financial work, ethical billing, things like that.
To answer a question directly, I'm not sure if it's the CEs was medical billing. I know, of course, ethics, but I'm not sure it was specifically medical billing. But what I have done is the medical billing company that I employ. We do tutorials, and we do read over the legislation that always continues to change. So I am in consultation with that, but I don't think it was specifically to the CE.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Smith, are you looking to become employed by a school district with the LSSP?
Well, my overall goal, long-term, right, is to obtain all of my licenses. But I figure if I just try to obtain my LSSP, I can continue to build trust with the board. So even though the twins are going to UT next in the fall, I have a 9th grader that's going in high school in the fall as well. So I did my residency at a school district. I did my internship at a school district, and I still know a lot of colleagues there that.
Here's where I'm going with it. And forgive me, it's been a while since I looked at your materials here, but do you actually have a felony conviction?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess my concern is, or my question would be is, if the board were to grant you the LSSP, are you eligible to even be hired by a school district with that criminal background?
So I looked into that. It's district to district. So
Okay.
For example, HISD, the big one in Houston, it kind of depends on what the felony was. And the one that I had, I'm still eligible. Now of course, they may look at that and my application may not be processed, or they may not look at it favorably, but it doesn't necessarily rule me out.
Okay.
Generally speaking, with school districts, Daryl, you all are the attorneys. It's considered like a heinous crime, something that goes beyond and the logic, stealing, I think that you can encompass some forgiveness on that regarding in school districts.
I was gonna say also, if if the license of an LSSP was granted, and because you wanted to table the psychologist license, if it were granted, it wouldn't mean in any way that that license has any less responsibility, than that of a psychologist, and it wouldn't be as kind of like a middle of the road kind of concession. I just want to make that clear that, it's not like a halfway point, the license.
Are there any other questions or discussion? We can open up the floor to general discussion.
I just have a general comment. I read your materials and I read, yes, there is a tremendous need, not only in Texas, but in other places for LSSPs in schools and to address the mental health needs of children. My concern really, I also want to appreciate the scope limitation that you placed on that, to say, if I'm granted an LSSP license and reinstated, there are safeguards in the sense that there are no financial transactions to be had in that sort of arrangement, that I work for an employer, I produce reports, and I do other roles that are within the scope of a school psychologist. And to your argument, what you were saying is, in essence, it's fairly safe, given what I encountered in my history. It is a position of intense trust, all around, because, when we go through very difficult situations, I can appreciate your situation and the difficulty, the decisions that you made under those difficult circumstances. And having said that, I learned from that and I've paid for, my mistakes. And I appreciate that too. And I think it takes a lot to sit in front of this board and ask for your license back. But my concern is really, you're also dealing with a vulnerable population. And so I do have concerns. I am, willing to, talk about this further and consider, granting that reinstatement. So I just wanted to say that to you, that, that violation of trust, is hard to get back, but I also understand as well, to counter that, is that you can't demonstrate your growth and the worthiness of that trust unless you're given that opportunity.
Appreciate you saying that.
Doctor, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask Mr. Smith a quick question. So I know it had stated that you had sought therapy and you had kind of been, working on your own mental health as well, especially after the incident. And, is that still happening? And are you still working at those schools?
I continue to work on myself. Yes, the divorce was very difficult at the time. There was a lot going on. But at this time, things has really progressed I'm in a really good place. And then not only that, one of the things I want to emphasize, because everything won't be perfect all the time, right? Even if I get to a place where things are not perfect, maybe financially or personally or relationship, I am better prepared to deal with those kind of things, whether it's kids related, relationship related, whatever. I'm a lot better prepared. It was kind of a tsunami, a perfect storm. Everything kind of happened at the same time. And I really wish I would have handled it differently. I really do, because I could have handled it 10 different ways, and I chose the one way that, I had to pay the price for. But I've been working very, very diligently and very, very hard to earn that trust back.
Dr. Smith, at this point, how long has it been since you've been practicing?
I first got my license in 2011, I believe, 2010,
Okay, and you had your license revoked in what year?
2019.
Okay, so it's been about 6 years since you practiced.
Yes,
Okay, so if we were to reinstate your license, would you be open to supervision? Because it's been a pretty significant gap since your practice, and you probably have some competencies to refresh on.
I will be open to that. Yes.
Doc, are you envisioning any kind of relationship where you've got a current company, right? You got some folks employed in that company?
Correct.
Okay, and so, are you envisioning a relationship where your company contracts with the school district to provide school psych services?
I haven't thought about that because I don't think the school district does that. I think they in-house everything. And plus my practice, we only deal with adults.
Okay, so you're talking about then either yourself being directly employed by or contracting with a school district? Okay.
Do you envision this as you leaving your current role with the company you have now or selling your stake?
I would love to stop making copy paste and making phone calls every day. Yes.
Any other questions?
I have a question, and that is, you indicated that you have a company now and that you provide oversight and you consult with persons that are employed in your company. What is your role in the financial handlings or operations of your company? What role do you play in?
One moment, Dr. Calhoun, we've lost your video, so you're just a voice in the ceiling. Can you turn your video on? Is that, or did we lose it? Okay, well, if you can turn your video on, Dr. Calhoun, that'd be great. Especially for deliberating, but go ahead, Dr. Smith, and answer.
My role as far as the financial dealings is I oversee, once the providers send their information directly to the biller, I oversee and make sure the time and the everything matches up. Because ultimately, even if they make mistakes, it's my company, it will fall on me. So I don't let anything go out before I oversee it one last time.
But you also have a professional billing company.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
you're not
right.
solely in charge of billing.
Oh, I'm not in charge of billing at all. That's not my expertise and I don't want to know, but I do oversee it just to make sure everything looks right, lines up and everything like that. And so far, no problems whatsoever.
That's great. Thank you. I just wanted to explore that with you a little bit.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Smith, for being here today. Thank you both for being here. This time we will go ahead and deliberate and have discussion. So I'd like to open the floor for discussion.
I'd like to propose, make a motion to reinstate with safeguards, supervision.
And to clarify, this is.
I second that motion heartily.
What was that?
I'm sorry?
Second. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any?
Do we have to specify?
Yes, probably.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
What type of supervision, how long, just some clarification on what you want, because it would need to be, we would put that in an eligibility order, so, is there a year, 2 years?
I would think probably 2 to 3 years.
I would agree as well. I would be closer to the 2-year mark.
Okay.
Practice monitor is what we're talking about.
Practice monitor, yeah.
And what kind of reports do we want? Starting, do we want to hear back every so often?
I would think so.
Yes.
What is standard?
Let me ask y'all a kind of a practical question. So
Practical.
if we were in Dr. Becker's world and we said, hey, you're gonna have to do supervision, it'd be, I think, a little bit different, but in a school environment, if he is working for a school district or contracted with the school district, how does it work when you have a profession, if you've got a practice monitor who has to have access to those school records. How's that gonna work
Mark?
under FERPA?
So what was the question again? So
How do you actually impose a practice monitor or supervision on somebody who is employed by or contracting with a public school? If that practice monitor is not also employed by that same school district? I'm trying to figure out,
Yeah.
how are they gonna
He
have
doesn't
access to the
practice,
records?
basically.
Yeah, to make sure that what Dr. Smith is doing is appropriate.
it's almost as if you would have to almost kind of like informally have like an LP that is an LSSP, because in many cases you have to have that for certain scenarios within schools. Typically the LSSP kind of does their thing within the school, but we could require that an LP just kind of sign off after check, like on a monthly check-in basis or something like that, that's employed within the school. But as far as like formally, I don't know who else it would be really. I mean, you have the principal, you have, I mean, that there's not really anything else there in terms of like from special education side.
I don't think you would necessarily need an LP because we're just talking about school psych services.
That's true.
here. So, yeah, it could just be an
Right,
LSSP.
practically.
Another LSSP.
There's a restriction on the records is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're gonna be restricted in viewing those records from the school is what Daryl's saying.
But
I
how's it
hear what you're
different than,
saying.
like an LPC supervisor who is not included?
Because schools have a special layer about allowing that, so,
Sure.
right?
So could it be done in a way that, identifying information is not divulged, but, everything else, talking about H's and scores and tests administered?
That's just it, is that FERPA doesn't really allow you to release those records even de-identified. Right.
You could request, consent from the actual parents of every report that is reviewed.
Right. But I think what Daryl is getting at is that it could be restrictive in terms of allowing Dr. Smith to practice.
It becomes easier if the supervisor is already in that school district. So
Right.
you don't, from a practical standpoint, well, would y'all mind if I just, how would you do it? You know what we're talking about here.
Right, so I guess the best way I would think to do it to stay compliant with all the rules and regulations would be find a LP that's also an LSSP that maybe I wouldn't have to work in a school district. I don't know, or work in a school district that has, and just basically like I do now, just tell everyone, my situation and see who would, how that would go and, maybe abbreviated reports without,
It's also private school possibilities.
Yeah, I didn't think, right.
Private school becomes a little bit easier, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're subject to FERPA or not, but,
I don't know, I mean, HIPAA would allow it because there is oversight authority under HIPAA. But I'm not familiar enough with FERPA to know that that's in there.
I'm admittedly ignorant on that as well, so I don't.
But we should look, certainly.
It would probably be easiest if the supervising LSSP was at the same school district.
Yeah.
Because my understanding is they would then be able to look at all the same records, so
Yeah.
it would work that way. The other.
That's what I was gonna say. If they're in the same district, they'd be able to access those records as long as those limitations are pulled. Like for that particular school, you have access to those records, or
So.
And that could be part of the agreement, is that, that employment be sought at a district that has, the availability of an LSSP, LP to supervise.
So let me ask another, I'm not trying to be Johnny Raincloud here, but I'm trying to get ahead of this because we had something like this happen 10 years ago and it caused some backup problems. Let's say you impose a requirement, a practice, we'll call it a practice monitor requirement. Schools are hard up for LSSPs. They're looking for them, but they're also not going, I can just see it being problematic in trying to find someplace that's going to want to hire Dr. Smith with that component added on there because then going to have to be providing a level of supervision over and above the multidisciplinary team approach what the multidisciplinary team approach already provides. So I guess where I'm going is, are we setting him up to fail? In other words, you're adding a requirement that no school district is going to be willing to take on.
I think that depends on the frequency of the reports. Now, if you want to report, every month, I think that's going to be more burdensome. But if you want to report every quarter or something along those lines, I think that would be more palatable.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I'm not trying to talk y'all out of that.
No,
I'm just-
Dr.
Yeah.
Mr. Antonius.
Mr. Zaguris, you have your hand raised.
Thank you.
The answer to the problem, I think somebody tried to talk about it already. One would be to have somebody within the school district that would be supervised. You wouldn't have a problem with HIPAA or FERPA there, Daryl. But as short as we are on school psychologists, not every school district has the luxury of having a school psych on hand. Sometimes they have contracts with LPs. That may be an angle there. But if I were in Dr. Smith's shoes, and thank God I'm not, I would go by the old way of on the introduction. You tell them about confidentiality, and you disclose all these issues, and you must disclose that you're currently under supervision. And since I'm being supervised, I'm going to help you with this evaluation so that your child can get services. But I need for you to sign this release because I'm being supervised and they go over all my work. And so then you would do a informed consent release, and it's very simple.
I think there are two separate issues that I believe that you have the best intentions coming to the board, Dr. Smith. So let me start there. I think as a regulator, I am struggling to work through two separate issues in handing you back a license, okay? So if I take them apart separately, my first issue is competency. So I am looking to help you confirm for us that you've closed the gap in reestablishing your competency over 6 years of not having practiced, right? So I'm wondering if the first step is somehow taking 6 months to reestablish with a supervisor, not with a job, but taking 6 months of supervision out in the community where you work with someone about getting up to date on all those things that you would be doing in a school, and 6 months of supervision where you demonstrate that you can be a functional LSSP out there in the school. Okay, so maybe that's how we close that gap, and I don't know what we call that, Daryl, so maybe give me language for that. And then you take that 6 months, right? And once you have the job, we work out what that contract looks like. And that becomes, I work under someone in the school, that I have someone with the rails on for a year after that is at least looking at my work. And I don't know what that looks like, right? So so there are two separate issues to me. The first is establishing the competency. The second is having some guardrails after that. And I think that they can be two separate pieces, but I think that's why we're trying to put it together as having the practice monitor, because he's been 6 years without practice. So maybe if we separate them, because you don't have a job in the school that you're walking into. So I think I'm less concerned about separating those two pieces out.
Would having him retake and pass the praxis exam address the competency issue?
No, because it's not, the practice exam is,
It's content.
it's foundational knowledge. It's not actually, there've been 2 changes in updates to the tests that you're sitting down and giving to kids in schools. It's not the same exam as it was 6 years ago, so he needs to get up to date on the newest version of the WACE.
So are you thinking like a shadowing kind of situation? or actually where he's volunteering, or?
I'm not really sure what I'm thinking, but I mean, do you get what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
Like,
Would it almost be, originally I was thinking we were talking about like CEs and having to complete CEs, but this almost sounds like a modified internship of some sort. And so is that kind of the direction we're leaning? Is-
maybe, I mean, I think you just need to get out there and do some practicing. And you need to get up to date on, I mean, there's been a lot of change in 6 years. I think you need to get working with someone and actually do some supervised practice.
And when I thought,
I have a question about that. I just want to
Yeah.
be sure he's not gonna be practicing license.
Well,
Yeah.
So I have to,
Yeah.
So just to that point, and this is outside my scope, so you guys tell me, but I believe Dr. Smith has come and said, I'm only seeking my LSSP because it is a more safe practice area, it's more supervised, et cetera. What you're talking about would actually be easier to do and more supervised under an LP. If he had his LP back, then you can require practice monitoring and supervision, almost like an extra postdoc sort of placement. Not as formal, but that is then, what you're talking about is going out in the community and having a supervisor and shadowing. That's an LP, not an LSSP.
And then restricting the practice.
That's up to you.
Candidly, it seems like that would be easier to go that route, and then it eliminates all the issues that we've been talking about with supervision within the context of the LSSP school.
The conversation has taken a very strange turn.
Yeah.
We have moved from the LSSP, which I mean, I don't mean this to sound bad, but it's a much more limited scope license to now. And that's what he's asking for.
Right.
And we're talking about the only thing that you guys can't do is the school psych services. Literally the whole spectrum of mental health is there before you with the LP. So.
Good.
And I mean, he just resigned his license 6 years ago. I would be on, I mean, look, I'm just the ED, but I would just be really hesitant to reinstate the full LP. Feels like it would be too soon to give a new LP.
Yeah.
Disagree.
So would there be an LSSP in the community where you would feel comfortable approaching with this possibility? Maybe somebody, who doesn't work in the school system, but probably would be a psychologist and LSSP to tell them about what we're talking about and allow you to work with them for your time. Is that kind of work with what we're saying?
Sorry, what were you gonna say, Daryl?
The only way, I mean, he can't do anything unless we give him the license.
Right.
He's gonna have to go find an
Yeah.
exempt setting otherwise, and that's
Yeah.
probably not gonna happen. But, we used, if y'all have all been on the board after this, but once upon a time, I'm old enough, I remember when LSSPs used to have to be supervised for a year.
Right.
We would fully license them as an LSSP, and then we just had this kind of goofy requirement in the rules that said, well, you gotta be under supervision for a year. So that was something that existed,
Right.
10 years ago. And that's kind of what you're talking about here, but
Exactly.
I'm sitting here thinking, guys, the only way I can see to make what y'all are talking about work is if you say, well, you're gonna have to be employed. And that's what I would say. I would say you're gonna have to be employed by the school district, not contracting with, because as an employee, they have a lot more control over you than they do as a 1099 independent contractor. I would say you have to be employed and you have to be under supervision by another LSSP in that school district. And whether they have an LP or whatever, it doesn't matter as long as they got the LSSP. And then y'all can set whatever terms and conditions of that supervision you want. I just need everybody to understand that the more, and I'm not saying don't add on terms and conditions, but the more you add on, the less likely it is
And he
that
can meet them.
is gonna be usable by a school district.
Yeah.
Less desirable to hire if that's what I'm trying to say.
Sorry, you were gonna say something.
Oh, well, we're back when you were talking about, excuse me, excuse me, him being a full psychologist. It was that one of the restrictions could be on his ability to independently bill. So, because like I said, the financial is what we've been concerned about. Really, he's been trustworthy as a clinician.
Yeah.
There's no issues there. But I think we've kind of moved off of that a little bit, so. I just would also like to be careful that if you were instated and he can't find a job because the school districts just are too overwhelmed to meet that he doesn't get dinged for failure to, there isn't anything in his record that said, well, we gave him a chance and he failed. I want to make sure that wouldn't be there because that would make it instrumentally harder to ever come back when it really had nothing to do with him.
So as you can see, we're working really hard to
Yeah.
try and,
I appreciate that.
I don't know if we'll be able to come to a pathway at this time. It doesn't seem that way.
What's our next meeting? What's the next site board meeting?
September 18th.
I have just a suggestion. I wonder if we could, between now and our next meeting, we could, what about if we, gave you the ability to seek employment under those conditions, and once you find an employer that is willing to hire you, then upon that condition, then we could grant the LSSP.
I think he has to have his LSS.
Yeah, he's gonna have to have it. That's the problem. They won't hire him.
Well, I mean, he would, but it would be conditional in essence upon, identifying and being hired. That you would have an agreement from a particular school district that he is hired contingent upon us granting him the LSSP license. And on our end, it would be conditional upon him being able to be hired.
Basically, you want him to go out and see if anybody will hire him based upon these conditions we've talked
I
about
don't
here
think
today.
any school is gonna hire him without being able to look him up and see on the website that he has his LSSP.
Unless we give him a letter indicating that.
Functionally, the agreed order with the license would work that way. So if he agrees to the terms and conditions, then we issue the license is bound by those terms. So we can go ahead and issue the LSSP with those caveats.
Okay, it would be on our end first and then, okay. Again, going back to hopefully not setting Dr. Smith to fail. But I guess, we won't know that until.
Let me ask this. Are you all, is everybody, do you all want to give him the LSSP back conditioned upon certain safeguards? Because if you're like, well, no, not even with any safeguards, I wouldn't want to do it, then this is all for naught and we're wasting a bunch of brain power here.
I think we do. I mean, I think we probably need to pull the folks there, but I think at least us in the room are working at it.
Daryl, you had mentioned, just essentially like the way that it used to be, there was a year of supervised experience by another LSSP technically in a school. If we left it at that, it almost seems like that would be the only real way that this could realistically be accomplished. And for a set amount of time requiring supervision, and then there could be like a caveat that there needs to be a check-in with the board every 3 months or every month, or, something like that as well. I don't know. That's just kind of trying to think outside the box, but what you said, I think seems to be the only way it could work.
Can I suggest, the direction you as the board need to give us as staff in this instance is to enter an agreed order with Dr. Smith and issue the license. If you feel comfortable, we can then work to draft that agreed order, given all the discussion we've had here.
Okay. Then I motion to move for the agreed order do we have a motion already in process?
You have a motion that's on the floor right now. Do we need to?
Okay.
which essentially, I believe the
Is-
motion is Dr. Lambden saying to direct staff to issue the license with
Safeguard,
with
yeah.
safeguards.
And that's been
Yeah, we
seconded,
did get it.
so we just need to vote. Okay.
Any other discussion on that? All right, this time we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. So communication will be your best friend over the next coming months and years. Just continue to communicate with the board. And then staff will figure out what that reward looks like. So, okay. Thank you folks for being here. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Patrick. Thank you.
All right. The next one up is Dr. Andrea Ortiz. Is Dr. Ortiz here on the call or?
Yes.
Hello, all. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Dr. Ortiz.
I'm doing well, thank you. I apologize. I'm a voice from the sky, as someone said. I'm a single mom to a special needs child, and I was not able to come there in person today to address you all. But good morning to the board. I wanted to begin by saying I am respectfully requesting an appeal to the denial of my LPP application to have my postdoctoral residency hours taken into account to cover for the outstanding 4.1%, which equivocates to about 32 hours of short of the required time frame of 25%. Which I actually was out 1 full week of my internship because I had laryngitis, which I somehow contract every year around the same time. So I had laryngitis and was out for 1 week and missed my hours. And because of the nature of the work at the Cohen Veterans Network Clinic, was not able to get those hours made back up. Before I begin to kind of get more into that, I'd like to just have one moment to say that I am in a very unique position. I transferred to the University of North Texas in 2019 after completing 5 years of a PhD program at Argosy University, Phoenix, which was prematurely closed due to financial impropriety. So I actually have completed loads of hours for a practicum and was heading to internship about 1 month prior to their closure. As a result, we were all requested to forfeit all of our documentation, our hours to start over because the Department of Education had not reached any sort of arbitration with that university system, and to my understanding, has not till this day. As such, I went to the University of North Texas in 2019 with an 8-month-old baby on my hip and started over from scratch. So what ensued was me completing another doctoral degree and then eventually finally getting through to the internship level. At which point in time, my advisor encouraged me to be okay going to CVN, Cohen's Veteran Network, because of their location in proximity to my ex-husband to be able to take care of our special needs son. CVN was not APA accredited. I was made aware of that up front. However, the director of clinical training did tell me that they were pursuing this along with hiring a second intern on site. And to my knowledge, they were not given that approval due to funding. Cohen Veteran Network is a VA outpatient clinic that is privately funded by Stephen Cohen that to serve post 9/11 veterans specifically. That being said, at the end of my internship was notified the last day of my internship that I was going to be short hours, which I will respectfully just leave it at that. So here I am today, respectfully asking to consider other hours that I have since completed in my postdoctoral residency, which began January of 2024, 2 weeks after I graduated from my PhD program at UNT, and I'm continuing to accrue those hours as of this day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ortiz. Opening the floor for questions.
So what exactly are we missing then here? Is it all postdoctoral hours or are they doctoral internship hours? Just want to clarify, just make sure that we all know.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Staff had to deny the application because of two aspects. One was the percentage of internship hours that were meant to be direct contact. And the other was the requirement for 2 full-time equivalent internship students. I think you saw from the materials that the percentage was more like 21% rather than 25%. And then the students there were a number of students, but they were a mix of internship, practicum, postdoc. So it was still a group of people, but it did not meet the letter of the rule.
Is the UNT program APA accredited?
Yes, yes, ma'am, it is. And actually, one of the practicum students there was my colleague who was about to get an internship at that site the following year once I graduated. Again, it was due to funding that they were not able to hire the second intern.
Are we talking about a program or an internship?
I was asking about the program because I was asking about the program because the program accepted the internship as meeting the requirements of the program.
Correct.
Right.
UNT's program is APA accredited.
Right, so they accepted the internship and the qualifications of all of this as meeting the requirements of the degree.
I got you.
So where I'm struggling as a board as not accepting this, the APA accredited program accepted this as meeting her degree requirements, which they as a program should not have. It didn't meet the requirements of the program, but they accepted it and they allowed her to graduate with it. So now we're stuck as a board because, right?
We look like the bad guy.
Because we look like the bad guy. So again, the program failed the student, the internship failed the student, and now we as the board are stuck being the bad guys. Because we have very detail-oriented staff who go through and look at the components that make up the whole. So I'm really struggling here what to do with this because there's a part of me who really feels for this student who clearly had an APA accredited program. And we say that we are like if she has the program and she has the education, I don't want to sit here and say we're not going to accept everything, but this here is a failure of the program. And that makes me mad for her. I'm really frustrated with what we are doing here.
It changed, obviously, the program, when the evaluators from APA went out and did their evaluation at that particular time, it met the criteria.
But this is her internship. What I'm saying is they accepted her internship as meeting the requirements of the program for graduation.
Maybe I misspoke, I'm referring to the internship.
Yeah.
Yeah, at some point it met the criteria.
It was never an APA accredited internship though, is what I heard her say.
It was not, okay, got it.
It was never an APA accredited internship, but the degree program
Yes.
accepted it as meeting the criteria for her PhD.
I understand.
So the program accepted it.
The program accepted it for her graduation.
Got it.
But now
Yeah.
when she's applying, even though her program accepted it, they see the hours are not.
The hours do not meet the licensure requirements.
So so the program could have said, we don't meet, or we don't accept the internship.
So if it is an APA accredited program,
Right.
the internship must meet certain minimum requirements in order to meet your requirements for graduation. That's why it's APA accredited. They failed her as a student.
Not
Does,
put in this position.
does
To
she,
put her in this position to come before the licensing board as having an internship that does not meet the requirements of her degree.
Mr. Seguros, you had a comment?
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask her, does she qualify for a remediation plan?
I was about to ask the same thing, Mr. Zagorski.
So the
I beat
board,
you.
yeah, the board can do a number of things. The detailed requirements of the internship are in rule. And so under the new remediation rule, the board has flexibility. You can consider what she did complete to be sufficient and not require anything else. You can consider what she has done since the internship as contributing sufficiently to remediate any concerns and not require anything further. She'll still have to finish the postdoc year and all the other requirements.
I would like to see her make up the gap in the face-to-face hours in her postdoc years. That would be the remediation requirement that I would have. So she is missing a number of face-to-face hours in that internship year that should have been required under the internship. If she is in fellowship, I would have her make the gap in what is missing in those face-to-face hours as part of her fellowship, even if that means extending fellowship a little bit longer to meet those face-to-face hours, just to have that face-to-face competency, because that's what's missing.
And so that was about 100 hours of what would have, an additional 100 hours would have met the 25% requirement.
So then
And
I would
so-
require an additional 100 hours of face-to-face time as a postdoc.
I
think-
completely agree with
think-
Dr.
I think that what Dr. Becker is saying is the best solution in this situation. I agree with that.
Yeah, I also agree. I do have a question for Dr. Ortiz. Dr. Ortiz, you did mention that you were out for about a week and that kind of set you back. Within the body of the report, I'm just curious, I want to know, you know, what it was actually, or was it a combo of the two? The clinical director, Dr. Fiducia, I believe is how you say it. She wrote that due to no-shows and cancellations, Dr. Ortiz completed 393 hours of clinical work totaling 20.9 of the 1,880.5 hours he worked. So I'm curious, which of the two was it?
Correct. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Fiducia, that's how to say her name. Dr. Fiducia did not, I guess, document that I had that of that percentage of those cancellations was me canceling that week that I had laryngitis, because I had been, it's a long story. I had been required to go to supervision either way. And I lost my voice actually in supervision because I kept being questioned about things. And so I had planned on saving my voice to see those patients and instead lost my voice in that supervision meeting. So I was not able, I had to cancel my patients for the duration of that week in order to follow my medical doctor's ruling that I needed to rest my voice, or he said I was going to be facing damaging my vocal cords. So I followed his orders instead and ended up in HR. It was really fun. So in a nutshell, we did call that no call, no shows because we did have significant cancellations at that clinic due to the nature of the treatment setup with that demographic of patients. So in the end, Dr. Fiducia and I, when we were completing my closing paperwork, did agree to what she did put there in the letter. And to what you all said earlier, I 100% agree. I'm all about following the rules as well. That's why I'm here today. And I have actually, I would love to speak to the requirement of face-to-face that I've done 2 postdocs. I'm on the second one at this point. My first one was at an APA accredited practice group that had over a dozen interns, residents actually. So there were several of us present and under supervision, in group supervision as well as individual. So that box got checked and I completed, roughly 1,266 hours there from last January to September. And then due to my desire to focus more on forensic and court-ordered populations, I was referred to begin my second postdoctoral position, which is where I'm at now, getting specialized supervision for that population directly to work with family court-ordered veterans. So I have, as of now, from October 2024 to now, accrued roughly 700 hours. So I am happy to continue in that role and to extend as long as needed to complete all of the hours, to complete the entirety of the state's requirements for my postdoctoral component.
Thank you so much for your answer. Having said that, I am in agreement with Dr. Becker, and I would be willing to agree to a plan like that, a remediation plan.
Dr. Ortiz, are you carrying forward any of your internship hours to use in satisfaction of your postdoc hours?
Let me make sure I understand. Do you mean for the application process?
Yeah, for licensure, yes.
Yes, sir. I wanted to use all of the above if I could, due to the nature of me having completed a second doctoral program altogether. Yes, sir.
Sorry, just to clarify, not the 2 postdocs, though, are you, in your application, did you count any of the 1,800 hours in the doctoral internship or the postdoctoral hours?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay.
I don't believe I was. I'm sorry, there's a lot of paperwork names that sound similar. No, sir, I have not ever even touched those hours to submit to you all yet, because my current supervisor had said, hold off on that. You need to submit everything pre-postdoc so that the board can review it. And then contingent upon that, we were going to then apply for the next level up of licensure under, I think it's independent or whatever would come next for provisional status, but she said to hold off on those. So I have not submitted those hours to you all at all, but I'm happy to if needed ASAP.
2 years of postdoc, she's not gonna need them.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we weren't relying upon an internship that was giving y'all pause to also satisfy postdoc hours is where I was going with that.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so according then to the notes, she was required to have 1,750 hours in the internship, which she got 1,880. And she's required to have another 1,750 in the postdoctoral experience, which she currently has 1,966.
The problem
is
the face-to-face hours in her internship.
And so how would you like her to document the extra 100 hours?
She just needs to document her face-to-face time during her postdoctoral. Needs to be, I think it's 50-50. Is it?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know the person. She just needs to document the extra 100 hours of face-to-face time in her postdoc.
We've done eligibility orders where we say, in addition to the 1,750, you need to do an additional
100 hours.
And
Right.
so Dr. Ortiz, will you be able to provide a breakdown of direct face-to-face hours in some manner?
Yes, sir. I was extremely transparent with my present supervisor about the situation. She shares you all's sentiment. So I really appreciate the passionate response from you all. It really is validating to what I experienced across the board in higher education. But short answer, yes, she and I have a system by which we document and very carefully separate out the hours of face-to-face. And I'm going to be well in excess of those when that time comes to submit that documentation.
Dr. Becker, are you wanting her to just, out of her existing hours, document that she received 100 hours of face-to-face? Or are you wanting an additional 100 hours of face-to-face?
Just when she goes to submit for her LP, that she can document in excess of the requirement for the LP, that there's an additional 100 of face-to-face hours to account for what was missing in that internship training.
Okay, do you understand what Dr. Becker is saying, Dr. Ortiz?
I am going to repeat it to make sure, but I believe I do. It sounds like she's saying that when I submit my documentation, I will attach an addendum illustrating this meeting, saying that I was I completed in addendum to the state's requirements, an additional 100 hours of direct face-to-face hours with patients.
That is
Yes,
correct.
that's it.
Okay,
You got it.
thank you.
Is that a motion, or do we want to make a motion on that?
Well,
Or
so
is-
let me just confirm, Dr. Ortiz, based on what we've discussed, because you are already past the year, do you believe you already have those hours? Or you,
I love what I do, so I could never, but yes, sir, I have exceeded that, probably about a month ago. But my supervisor and I agree that until I get an official green light from you all, I'm going to continue working as if, because I was not sure what you all would require me to do. So my plan has been to keep serving my patients as best I can.
then, Mr. Chair, I would recommend the board grant the appeal, refer the matter back to staff to continue processing.
Does that need to be made in the form of a motion, or is that just?
Yes.
Okay.
I will make that motion, as Robert said it.
I will second.
I'll second.
Too late.
Okay. Yeah, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
I'm sorry, but I need to abstain from that motion. I have a conflict of interest.
Apologies. Thank you for pointing that out. All right, thank you for being here, Dr. Ortiz.
Thank you all so much. Not to be cheesy, but this is the best Mother's Day gift ever, so that I can tell my son that mommy can finally work hard and take care of us both. So thank you all so much. I truly appreciate it. I hope you guys have a lovely day.
Thank you.
You.
Ortiz.
May I leave this meeting?
Yes, have a
yeah,
bathroom break.
You may leave.
Yeah, do we want to go ahead and take a break? It's 10:52 right now. Do we want to take a break for 8 minutes to restrooms and all that?
When's your stop time?
Wow. As long as we need to go.
Oh, don't you have a meeting?
Don't we have another meeting actually?
Yeah.
We do have another meeting starting at 1. We would like to be done by 1, but if we have to keep going.
So, well, we
do have,
you can't with Zoom.
oh. Yeah,
It's a hard stop.
okay. Hard stop at 1.
So why don't we do this instead? Instead of, unless there's multiple people getting up right now, do we just, I mean, we still have a quorum. Do we want to just people?
All right.
We'll go ahead and continue, because yeah, we've still got a few of these to work through. So next one up, Dr. Karen Parsonson. Is she available?
Dr. Parsonson, if you are in the online audience, would you please raise your hand? Do not see her, Mr. Chair.
So in that case, do we want to go ahead and open up the floor for discussion on this one?
Yeah, let me pull that up so we can explain the denial.
Was this the rather odd one that was retired, the Canadian license?
Yes.
Yes.
And so it is a little strange. So this one was, we could not qualify under an active other state license for 5 years. And that is a strict statutory qualification that she did not meet. And so, then while she has been licensed in Canada, for a number of years, we cannot document the supervised experience, with the internship and the postdoc. It's just not available. And we have done a lot to try to allow alternative documentation, such as showing the rules at the time when you got licensed and the presumption that you met those. Unfortunately, at the time in 1993, Canada only required 1 year of supervised experience. And so that's half of what is required in statute. So this was one of those that it feels very wrong and difficult to tell someone who has been licensed in another jurisdiction for many decades that I'm sorry, you can't come and get a license here without repeating training. But without documentation, we can't show that she meets the statutorily required elements.
Didn't she say recently that she got licensed recently in Oklahoma? Can I read that?
Don't recall that.
I thought there was,
And since she was licensed in Canada, we can't honor that, even though that she had that full license at the time, did the requirements at that time. There's nothing we can do.
It's that weird, statute would allow us if she still held the Canadian license. Because then she would be actively licensed for 5 years. But she doesn't.
Right.
May I say something?
What?
So, just going back to this case, made some notes and I see that the license was active 93 to 2011. So that would make it approximately 18 years, retired in 2011 to care for her father. Currently, she's a professor at the University of Houston, Victoria. She teaches forensic psychology, according to Dr. Parsonson. So I would have concerns about clinical skills, aside from if she could provide the documentation. That's a long time to not have clinical skills in practice.
I'm sorry, in her correspondence with Monica, she has become licensed in Tennessee with a designation as a health service provider. And she's also a certified forensic evaluator now in the state of Tennessee. I don't know if that weighs in. That's page 2 of the correspondence. Monica.
And so, once she has been licensed in Tennessee for 5 years, then the experience requirement
Has been met.
has been met.
How long has she been licensed in Tennessee?
I think it just happened sometime between April the 2nd and the previous correspondence with Monica, which was, I don't know.
On the second page of her correspondence where she mentioned it, all she said was, I've successfully obtained my license in Tennessee as a psychologist. So to that point, yeah, I don't know that that's been clarified anywhere.
Sorry, for some reason I had it in my head, it was Oklahoma where we have reciprocity, which is why it stuck with me.
Southwest.
Yeah. I know.
And
All these southern states.
And generally speaking, these won't come to you until staff has done a lot of work trying to make it work.
Yeah.
Did she, in applying with Tennessee, do we know, did they rely upon her former Canadian license, or did she have to go through the normal process there?
Don't know.
So it sounds like once, just to sum all that up, once she hits the 5-year mark with Tennessee, that seems to open up the options quite a bit. Is that the threshold that we're looking at?
I believe that will answer the problem of the documentation. She cannot.
See, I would have loved to have had her present here so we can ask her a few questions. I think currently she is a professor. She does have a license in Tennessee. She is an evaluator, forensic evaluator. I'd be curious to find out, what specifically she's seeking to have a license, to what she would like to do with the license in Texas. At this point, I'm inclined to, not making a formal motion, but I'm inclined to deny, given that she has other sources of income and she's not able to provide documentation that meets our criteria.
And just to supplement, staff let me know the Tennessee license was issued in February of this year.
Is there any other discussion, or does anyone want to make a motion?
I don't know that I have a strong opinion on this one. I kind of wish I knew what Tennessee based their stuff. So I don't know that I feel strongly one way or another without her here to speak to some of the stuff that Dr. Lambden's asking about.
And again, we, as staff, we will always let you know if you have the ability to waive or remediate, or if things are just based on your own rules. These are statutory requirements that are not met.
Is there a motion on the table? Anyone wants to make?
Guess we motion to deny.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes. Next one up is a LP application for Colleen Bardsley. Is Ms. Bardsley available? I see a raised hand.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good morning, board members. My name is Colleen Bardsley. I appreciate you taking the time to hear my appeal. I'm appealing the denial of my LPA application. Through my respecialization program for the licensed specialist in school psychology, I completed all of the core coursework that aligns with the requirements for the LPA licensure as defined by the State Board of Examiners of Psychologists. The curriculum I completed covers the same foundational areas of assessment, ethics, intervention, and research methodology required for both the LSSP and the LPA pathways. Upon entering my respecialization program, I explicitly inquired about LPA eligibility, and I was assured by faculty members and administration at the college I was attending that completing this coursework under the respecialization route would still fulfill the educational requirements for both LSSP and LPA licensure, even though some of my original hours were obtained through my first master's degree of special education. Based on this guidance, I pursued this path in good faith instead of doing the specialization or the full LSSP program. My ultimate goal has been to obtain licensure that allows me to work in both the school-based and private settings under a licensed psychologist. I understand that supervised experience and successful completion of the EPPP are still required, and I'm fully prepared to complete these steps. I do have a licensed psychologist that has agreed to supervise me should you approve my appeal. I respectfully request the opportunity to move forward with any postgraduate supervision under licensed psychologist in order to meet the requirement for LPA. And I'm deeply committed to upholding the ethical and professional standards of the practice of psychology. And again, would love to be able to serve the community in a broader capacity.
Thank you, Ms. Bardsley. Is there any questions?
Yes, Ms. Barnsdale, could you, repeat for me, how, we have 39 credit hours, and when we require 60, and tell me again your argument for why that criteria should be fulfilled according to your application?
Yes, so I took my original hours. I originally was an educational diagnostician, and Texas A&M Commerce had a respecialization program that allowed diagnosticians basically to bridge and use those classes that were obtained through the special education master's in educational diagnostician and not retake those courses that aligned with the school psychology program. And so they said that those would be sufficient for both LSSP and LPA. And so all of my courses together are between the two colleges. However, my master's in special education wasn't through psychology, obviously.
So in your thinking, you were just adding 39 plus 36, assuming you had the practicum.
Correct.
So the hours from that other degree, those other courses are not here in front of us.
They were not, so staff, this is where, again, rules are, the dictates of rules are a little tricky. Under the LSSP rule, the board has, in recent years, added a number of pathways trying to allow for folks to get respecialization and qualify for the LSSP. It just happens that Ms. Bardsley doesn't quite fit in those pathways, because the respecialization, the way the language reads, is it is assuming that you have a 60-hour graduate degree that you are then respecializing on top of. Not that the with the graduate and specialist are adding then to 60. And so because the original graduate degree was not psychology, it was education, albeit related-ish. That's outside my field. It didn't combine under the rule exactly the way, you know, we try to write the rules to catch all these kind of permutations, but we can't catch all of them. And so again, this is one of those times we as staff had to say you don't meet the pathways that we have before us. But the
It is.
I'm sorry,
LPA.
LPA, I'm way off today. So let me get to that rule. So we have also tried to find avenues in the LPA, but it again it requires the total of 60 hours. There's some what we call Frankensteining to bring in, but not in the way that her degrees worked. But for both LPA and LSSP, the requirements are set by the board. And so if you, viewing her application, believe that it is meaningfully met all the requirements, you have the authority to accept what she has done up till now as sufficient, or to suggest ways that she could remediate any deficiency.
And just to clarify on this, we're only looking at the LPA application, correct? I'm not seeing an LSSP application.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, that was I was mixing things up.
Did you have credit for all the specific coursework that is required for an LPA application?
I believe so, and I submitted that. And I received my LSSP license last June.
I'm just concerned that, you know, there might not have been enough overlapping courses between that would allow you to have that fulfilled in terms of the specific coursework, you know.
So just to clarify, Robert, to what you were saying earlier, the foundational degree in psychology is really what's missing.
So what we would consider the foundational degree, that second A&M 39 hours master's in psychology.
Okay, and that's what you're, yeah, I see that here. It's 39 hours. And what we're seeking is really, it has to be 60 hours, correct? So pretty much.
Not just 60 of the right courses.
Right. That's assuming they are the right courses. So 39 hours, and we're looking at 21 sort of credit hours that are missing.
Right, and I believe the applicant is wanting to use the prior master's of
Special ed. Yeah.
toward those hours.
But I also heard her say that she already has her LSSP. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. The special education master's, I got the educational diagnostician. certification. And so the respecialization program through A&M Commerce used those courses that I would not have to retake the courses again through the respecialization to become an LSSP.
Okay. So you got your your LSSP first because you were an educational diagnostician. And then you went back and respecialized to expand your degree to then respecialize to extend your licensure as an LPA.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure I understand the pathway.
Have you filled out the description of required graduate level coursework for an LPA? Which is
Yes,
on the board's website?
I did. And I believe I submitted that with my application for the LPA.
See if I can pull that up.
I'll probably pull that up. Is there any other questions or discussion?
If it helps, I haven't looked at it specifically, but if you would qualify for the LSSP based on the coursework, they're not exactly the same, but they're pretty similar, and you would most likely qualify for, like, the educational component. But the coursework component probably would qualify for the LPA. I would think there's some slight differences, but I think the real issue here is the way the rule's written. It requires you to have 1 60-hour degree, and so the staff wouldn't be able to do it. It'd be something that the board would have to look at as remediation. Would they be willing to count credit hours from another degree to add up to the 60 required by the rule?
Well, I would like to see the worksheet.
Okay.
Because looking at the courses, it's definitely not an easy comparison.
So, I mean, she met the criteria for the LSSP after the respecialization. So then the question really becomes, what is the difference? What has she not course-wise taken that, in addition to that she would for the 21 hours? I mean, I think that's kind of more what we need to decide and look at if she is lacking that at all.
I'm not sure that that's necessarily in our packet.
Right.
Because we don't have the other side of her educational information.
To assess whether or not those 21 hours that are missing, they're pretty comparable.
Yes, because we only have half of it because we don't have the previous coursework to put all the coursework together and say, do we have everything in totality that's required within those 60 hours? Because I don't think that we are hearing that we have an unqualified candidate per se. What we're really looking to hear is, do we have all the requirements content-wise that we need her to have met the Frankenstein of all of this? And if those components are all there, I don't know that I don't have an issue from a regulatory standpoint of moving her forward. I think I just want to know that she has all of the Frankenstein components of the actual full degree or the full license.
Yes.
And I'm unfortunately not as well versed in the weeds of our Versus system to pull up the right documents at this moment for y'all. But it sounds like, so much like the prior applicant, you as board members do not need to get into the minutia of that level of detail. If what you're wanting to communicate to us is, it is okay to use both of these degrees for the requirements, direct staff to go back and make sure all of the individual coursework is met, and if so, proceed.
Right, provided that they substantively meet
And it
the
might require
requirements.
syllabi.
Yes, which we usually get.
And then if it didn't, we could request that, you know, some additional coursework be taken and she might be able to reapply if it did not. But I mean, it's kind of like you said, we're Frankensteining these two different degrees together, one, but assuming one with respecialization as well. So, I mean, she met the LSSP requirement. Haven't really seen one like this. So,
I mean, I think our whole goal in the last set of remediation was to make the pathway so that if you have an LSSP, you could move towards getting an LPA. If you have an LPA, you move towards getting an LSSP. It seems wrong not to say that we would move towards allowing this person to become licensed. We just need the information to pull it all together. Motion to direct staff to
That both degrees
accept both degrees.
and do a transcript review.
That.
Who's the board member that wants to take any questions? If we have a question about a coursework, which one of you wants it? We can't bring it back to everybody.
I would bring it to Mr. Adler.
Okay, so Herman's volunteer hold.
I see where things are going, so.
Thank you for your volunteer.
Volunteerism.
Yeah, for your involuntary service.
All right, it's been, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes. Next one on the list, LPA application for Shin Compton. Are they available?
I don't see any. I don't see any hands raised or their name.
I guess we'll just open the floor to discussion on that then. Background.
Compton, so Compton and I believe Copeland are both similar that we'll be discussing. This is the LPA application and the degree they were awarded is shy of the semester hours required. So 6 semester hours of practicum are required. In this case, Compton got 4. And so staff had to deny. In the appeal, seeing if the appeal received.
We know why they're
So they
not here.
graduated with their degree without completing practicum?
No, so they had 4 hours of practicum. And the degree program, I believe in this case was Walden. And
Right.
It didn't,
Requires.
it didn't, and so it didn't meet the total.
Oh, so they didn't require that.
Correct.
Again, this is a program issue more than a, you know, again, it puts the licensee in a bad spot, obviously. We've talked about this, but what can we do?
And so, Compton does not appear to be here, though, again. Compton, if you are in the audience, please raise your hand. They sent a letter talking about that they have extensive fieldwork experience, coursework, and so I think they are acknowledging that they have missing practicum hours, but they wish to get a waiver. Again, because this is a rule-based requirement, the board can choose to deny the license request, choose to accept the experience as is and give a license, or to provide a path to remediation.
So I see here number 4 that is listed in the letter on page 2 of the 3-page document. She says she requests a waiver of the missing practicum hours, or if necessary, an opportunity to remediate. Which I wouldn't be okay with a waiver.
Agreed.
I would consider remediation. And again, I think we all recognize the continuing issue with this particular program. And it really puts us time and time again in a very difficult position as graduates of this program come before this board.
I agree. And how do you remediate practicum hours? You know, it's very specific.
What's 2 credit hours worth in terms of, field hours?
I mean, do we know that that's all that the program offered, or that's just all they took? I guess I'm a little concerned about, why are we doing this person's work for them by taking this up when they didn't show up?
Well, they graduated.
No.
Or practicum hours.
Except for the dissertation. If they haven't finished their dissertation, they haven't graduated. Go finish your coursework.
From a master's?
Oh, this is the master's. This is an LPA, sorry. Yeah. Is the person here? Oh, because one of my questions was, where are they getting their doctoral degree? Because if they're getting their doctorate, then for me, there's no point in continuing to discuss this, because they're gonna have issues with their doctoral degree too.
I would agree.
We've been having licensing issues with Walden before I even came to the board. If we give people a pass, and I'm not against giving people a pass, most of these people have demonstrated that they've done good stuff, and I mean, we need to give them a chance. But what you do is, if you pass these people on, Walden isn't going to change. And so then I believe we had a discussion on a previous case that somebody was going to try to reach out to the college programs, or apparently there's some grandfather organization that tells the colleges what they have to do and what they don't have to do. Walden needs to get their hands slapped somehow. And if we keep passing these people on, they're not going to change.
We've said it before. This is one of those situations where our hands are kind of tied. I mean, we have rules that we have to follow. We have requirements, and
I move to deny the application.
Can I,
Second. Sorry.
before we take that motion, just because the next applicant, Jacqueline Copeland, is in a fairly identical scenario, it might be worth seeing if she is here, because I'd hate for you to box yourselves in a corner if she has some other reason that convinces you otherwise.
Okay.
they're similar, but wouldn't we still be taking them individually? If she's here and can provide an explanation, would it change the way that we're viewing this one?
Not necessarily, but do
we want to table this then and go out of order? Not table to.
Yeah, you can table it.
Yeah, just for the
table it
moment,
until-
just to see if, I don't know that she's even here, but Ms. Copeland, you're in the online audience, did you raise your hand? Okay, not seeing it, just in her instance,
That's a good call.
she has 5 of the 6 practicum hours.
Mm.
So I didn't want y'all to get to that one and then say, oh, geez, now what do we do?
No, that's perfect. Thank you for pointing that out. So on the Compton issue, there was a motion and a second. Was there any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. So
For the record, is it Mr. or Mrs. Compton? applicant Compton, if you're watching this video after the fact, had you shown up, that would have helped greatly in our making a decision and possibly a different decision.
Jacqueline Copeland, we said we did not see her online.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any discussion on Ms. Copeland?
So you were saying it's the same situation, except she's 1 credit hour short of the practicum requirements. Man, that's brutal.
Sorry.
Region.
Oh,
We're gonna come back to this because we are gonna go back because the Walden website lists themselves as meeting our licensure requirements. So we are going to need to reach out to them because they do not meet our licensure requirements. And that is a misrepresentation that we do need to bring to their
And misleading
attention.
every one of their students.
this is several we've seen from them.
And this is beyond problematic. And we probably need to look at and that's just their clinical psychology program. I can't even imagine what it is for their counselors. But hey, that may be a BHEC issue for you over there, John. Take notes.
Enjoy.
I'm sending you the website now.
I mean,
It's a violation of trust is really what it is. And it's unethical really to misrepresent yourself and have students come
worse than
and
that.
invest tons of money, time, effort in a degree that does not get them a license.
It's a disservice to the students and a disservice to the people the students eventually have to serve.
Absolutely.
It's
Full stop.
fraudulent.
and I think with confidence, we can say, I think every board meeting we've had a Walden issue.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, this is not gonna stop either unless we make some systemic changes with their requirements, with their program.
We're working on the BHEC agenda, don't worry.
Thanks for looking at it, Dr. Becker, because I was about to do the same thing after we got done here, so.
Sorry, I was just
The word more.
irritated.
We're all wondering that.
So we're right now though on the issue of Dr. Copeland or Ms. Copeland. 5 hours short, was there any additional discussion on that?
I think
Or-
it's the same,
5 hours.
just different, what's the
Region, university.
Yeah, which is, it's just a pretty good comparison, right, to.
This is Copeland.
Yeah,
Correct.
I will be that guy and make a motion to deny.
Been moved. Is there a second?
A second.
So, yeah, I have a question. So if it's a coursework thing that we can always try to do a remediation, when it's practicum hours, that's something that we just don't really know how could be remediated.
You could remediate it.
Huh?
You could remediate that. It's not a statutory requirement. The problem is you don't have anybody here. And I just don't feel like it's appropriate for us to take up their cross. And I mean, we're supposed to be the ones judging whether or not they met standards.
Okay.
But that is an interesting, we'll handle this and I'll bring that up.
Is there any other discussion on it? It's been moved and seconded already. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes.
So, Mr. Chair and Board, given that question about specifically making up practicum or internship hours, would the board like staff and then perhaps the rules committee to or the applications committee to look at having a more standard response to missing practicum, to explore whether there is some thing that for every missing hour, graduate credit hour of practicum, you as the board say, this is what you need to do to make it up, or is that worth even?
My answer is generally no. And this is my personal feeling on it, because my personal feeling is that is the responsibility of the program. And you shouldn't be passing, this was my point to the young woman, it was Dr. Ortiz who was here earlier. That's a failure of the educational program. If you didn't have enough practicum hours, you shouldn't have passed your program. If you don't have enough internship hours or the internship credits, you shouldn't have passed your program. That is the failure of the educational program that gave you your degree. which is why I'm getting so chippy and irritated with these unaccredited programs. They're not monitoring their students and they're just checking a box and sending them out into the world and making it our problem. That's the problem, right? And folks aren't understanding that. They're just going through and, well, why don't I have enough hours? Because your program didn't educate you appropriately, right? So no, I really don't want anything in the rules to remediate. Dr. Ortiz's was sort of this special situation where you did all the right things and at the last minute, like someone comes in and tells you you don't have enough hours and you didn't, but your program graduated you anyway. In an APA accredited program, how is it that you have one thing that says one thing and another thing that says another? That's inappropriate. That I can remediate because you have a mixed message. So it's really more the exception rather than the rule. And I would rather not have something in our rules that gives a formula for how to make up something that shouldn't exist. That's my personal belief. So other folks have different ideas, have at it.
I totally agree with Dr. Becker.
Yeah, I would agree with Dr. Becker and Dr. Cartwright. I think it speaks to the long term, if you want to take a bird's eye view of all of this, and I understand this is an LPA application. However, we all know the disparity between accredited programs and unaccredited programs and pass rates of the EPPP. I think you have that, and that's there for a reason. And I think we're doing a disservice by trying to stretch people's experience to fit in a place where, I mean, if we're gonna have rules and criteria, then we need to stick to them.
So as a question, just a question, where can we do a service? You know, if we were doing a disservice, right, where can we be, where's the area for us to do a service of some kind for this problem?
Honestly, I think the service that we could do is to reach out to universities that misrepresent themselves, because they are really putting forward candidates that don't meet our criteria. Our criteria hasn't changed. And I think that, you know, we're trying to strike the balance between trying to help and fill, you know, the needs of Texans, mental health needs of Texans. But you have, but again, you have to do that with qualified folks. And so there's a balance that we're trying to strike here to help people along, but at the same time, protect the public from people that may not be qualified to treat them.
So why not compile a list of programs that we've encountered and keep it on, like, when people start to apply for licenses, that these, you know, if you're applying from these programs, they will not meet criteria. Something like that, like at least, you know, to have applicants little bit of a, you know, a warning before they apply, that, you know, just saying, you know, like.
Hello.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I was having problems with my audio there. You know, this is something that I have raised, I think maybe 5 times in the last 3 years. I have suggested that we have a conversation, that we communicate with particularly in Texas. Of course, we can't do it everywhere, but in the state of Texas, we can do it. We have a commission on higher education, and that commission has a responsibility of approving all new programs and reviewing all existing programs. And I had a conversation just recently with the past commissioner for higher education. And I actually said to him, you know, we run into this situation where we have some schools not requiring the necessary number of internships as is required by the state for licensure. And I dare to say to him that, you know, some of this has happened on your watch. And he was surprised. He suggested that his replacement, who is now the commissioner for higher education, be contacted, and that we shared some of these conversations with him and some of these concerns with him. And I did have a conversation with Daryl about that. Only one one issue, and that was internships. And, you know, I think we're going to continue to face this meeting after meeting until we actually do something about this. And I mean, I've raised this, and it's been my pet peeve, and we've not done anything about it. And it is frustrating, and it's also unfair to students that come through our programs, and they think they have completed every requirement needed to have a to apply for the licensure that they're interested in, but that is not the case. So again, I'm asking you, why can't we have a meeting with the appropriate persons at the Commission on Higher Education in the state of Texas and raise some of these issues that continue to resurface so that we can address these things and move on?
Thank you, Dr. Calhoun. Everyone, you're seeing my face now. Our room computer went down. We are all still here. The board members are still here, but until we can get the video back up, we can't continue the meeting because we have to be able to see members. But what I'll say, Ms. Calhoun, Dr. Calhoun, problems. I appreciate that feedback, and from all the board members, it sounds like this is an area that y'all are interested in us working on. And so we will work on that as staff to get those conversations going with both Texas officials and the problematic programs.
I think we need to.
Hold on. Okay.
Be back. Oh.
Okay, now we are back. Or maybe, are we back or not?
No.
Okay,
Yes.
we're back. So
yes
give
and
us-
no.
Yeah, give us 1 second to make sure everything's back up for everyone who, if you missed some of that, or if we were out for a minute, we just lost our camera, but we are back up. No decisions were made. There was a little bit of conversation, but we'll repeat most of all that. So I think we're recording. I think we're good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Hey, McGregor, can we get our monitors back here?
But so as we're getting our monitors in here back up, to wrap up the conversation with the licensing matters, we're hearing clear direction from the board to have conversations both with Texas and with other universities about making sure it's clear what licensing standards are and that people are meeting. So no action on that, just.
Yeah, no action on that. Just in consideration of the time, because I know it's 11:38 and y'all mentioned kind of 1 o'clock. And we've still got a lot to go. Do we want to add this as an agenda item for the next meeting? I don't know what the appetite is, but this is something that clearly there's a lot of good conversation going on. I don't want to necessarily stymie that. Do we want to add that as an agenda item for a future meeting, that we actually sit down and have a discussion on this, maybe follow back up with you guys as to.
You absolutely, we can talk about adding it if not the next agenda. If it is summertime, and so our ability to get a hold of universities may be short, so you may have to give us two meetings before we have a report back for you.
No, that's perfectly fair. Okay.
Coming out of legislative session, getting a hold of the higher education coordinating board is a little difficult.
Yeah. I was on that board during a session. I remember that. I remember that very well. Okay, so are we fully back up and running first?
Yeah,
okay. Just screens. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is examination matters. This is reports on board's jurisprudence, exam vendor, and discussion of exam content. We have a report on where that is.
Diane, anything to report?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yes, we are we're working with eStrategy on the providing a case, like a course for the jurisprudence examination. We have a draft of the content outline that we're finalizing, and we'll be able to bring you information once we get further along in the formation of that course. But in the packet, just for your review, there is a quarter summary of the stats of the jurisprudence exam since we changed the questions, and comments there. So if anyone has any questions on that, just let me know.
Questions or discussion? So the next item is going to be enforcement matters for SOA.
Yes, there's Mr. Walker's a case that came back, it's a default and remand back from SOA, but it's a case where Mr. Walker was convicted of I think possession of child pornography. He's been imprisoned. He was taken to SOA, it didn't show up. They issued an order to remand it back. There's a proposed order in the packet to revoke his license that's for the board's consideration and recommendation to BHEC and to revoke it. Mr. Walker's been given notice. I believe he's in prison, so I don't anticipate that he's in attendance, but I believe we should at least allow him an opportunity to speak when he is in attendance on Zoom. But that's pretty much it, unless you have any questions on it.
Hold on just a second. She can't see them. We don't have a quorum here.
Oh, that's fair.
Would it be easier if I leave?
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're here or not. Everybody has to be resolved.
The people who are remote, we can't see.
I can pull it up.
We're legal now. We have to make sure that you
Yeah.
can see on our stuff. The law's not,
The law doesn't care.
yeah, the law doesn't care.
We don't have to see each other, but you have to.
You have a quorum again.
I can just totally satisfied.
You're good. You're good to go. That tiny screen.
Hey, whatever works. Okay, so is Mr. Walker online, or I assume not, but
Mr. Walker, if Mr. Walker or his legal representative is online, please raise your hand. Seeing none.
there's discussion.
Motion to revoke.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
No.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. For me, it appears there's no agreed orders.
Oh,
This one.
No.
Sorry, I forgot to announce recusals for that vote. It's Cartwright and Ackland. Couldn't vote for it. I don't know who.
Oh, I think it was on the IC.
Yeah, you're on the IC, so neither of you are, sorry.
Oh, he made the motion.
Yeah, so it needs a new motion.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'll
So
make the motion to revoke.
I'll second it.
it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion on the motion?
Mr. Adler and Dr. Cartwright are recused.
Perfect. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, moving on to rulemaking, starting with 463.35 professional development under adoption of rules.
And Mr. Chair, this is the continuing education rule. I would just lay out for the board and for everyone listening. We really appreciate all the public comments. We received quite a few, and a mix of for and against the change. I would say particularly to the attendee who was here earlier, you know, this is a sensitive topic and one where the board is trying to navigate and neither participate in nor bow to cultural or political battles, but instead avoid getting entangled in those battles. And as staff, we believe the change that's proposed accurately reflects the expectations of the board that all licensees continue to receive continuing education that enable them to be competent providers to whoever walks through their door. And that has an amount of choice to it, and that we let providers choose who they are providing treatment to, but that we recognize that it is not always a choice depending on how you offer your service, and that you need to be competent and ready for whoever comes through your door. And that is not a matter of a ideology or a political opinion, that is the bare minimum standard of practice. And so to those who are worried about what this change communicates or what the requirement is going forward, I would also note that we as staff with this change would consider it to be still the direction of the board, that when we audit folks, we confirm that they have gotten this training and that they did in fact get training about serving populations, not simply the practice of psychology itself.
Thank you for that. Is there any further discussion on?
I have a question. So my question would be, in light of the broadening, and to your point, I understand what you're saying, Robert, and why the modifications were made, but I wonder if, because I have concerns about this kind of being all over the place in terms of if staff receive continuing education hours or professional development, and you're really unable to identify who the population is, I think that would be kind of a little bit, it's not to the goal of why and how the rule was changed. Is there a way that perhaps we can ask at the renewal for them to identify, you know, which, or would we rely on the certificate of completion for that?
So this will work hand in hand with the starting of the use of CE Broker. And so starting in September, we will expect everyone to have an account with CE Broker and report their CE hours that way. In the profile where you report your hours, there will be a dedicated field for this requirement that you must attach continuing education proof about this field. And for that, yes, we would rely on what they attach, and what they attach, be it a certificate or something else, would need to show that it is about serving a population and understanding those dynamics, those cultural sensitivities, those geographic differences, whatever it is, that will need to be reflected on that proof.
So Robert, I think part of where a lot of the community pushback is coming in is in not explicitly defining what this very broad terminology means, right? And I know as well as you do that we went broad for a number of reasons, mainly to get that target off our backs. We are very much trying to fight the battle so that we can win the war, right? We're in it to win it. We're not looking to have this board disbanded over this, right? So having said all that, do we have any room or any space to help our constituents understand what this is? Because even before this, we struggled with understanding what this competency is. So is there some space to offer examples? You know, I think the problem is that we took out C completely and we didn't offer up anything. Is that gonna be problematic to put anything there that gives some definition to this?
So the two aspects to that. One would be to make any substantive changes now would be a fairly extra bureaucratic process to have to repost and re-comment and re-summarize comments, and when what you're talking about is adding, not changing. And so I would probably suggest from an efficiency standpoint, doing that as a separate consideration, not delaying this vote, because I don't want to suggest to folks that we're not pursuing this. Then the matter is what kind of guidance. And I think the reason we took out the list is that we don't want it to be seen as, well, you only included discussions of these types of things, so all this else is excluded. Even though we can use the term including but not limited to, you always have folks who read that as saying, well, but my thing is not listed, so it must not be included. Which is why it doesn't seem best to put that kind of language in the rule when what you're talking about is guidance, is helping people understand what could be encompassed. But so I think it could be a further conversation with the board, with the rules committee. Is there more definition that is necessary in the rule itself? Or is there some guidance explanation that needs to be put out there to help people know how to engage with the rule? And certainly we can continue that conversation and do that.
We can build FAQs for that.
Just for my personal opinion on this, when this was first presented to us, I thought it was doing a great thing by seemingly broadening that scope to me as a layman, as someone that's not in the field. It really seemed to broaden that scope. And to your point, yeah, you could do the including but not limited to language, but I don't know that people, you're right, read that and see my thing is not on there. I'm not categorized by any of these. So to my opinion, it opened up that to a broader interpretation. I do think a FAQ, I do think, as much as we can fertilize that, I think that would be very valuable. Anyways, kind of to Dr. Becker's point, that we for years kind of had issues defining around some of this. I think an FAQ would, and outreach would be incredibly helpful. But that's just my personal opinion. Is there any other comments or discussion?
I just think we need to do something, because I think you have to understand that you're talking about minimal competency of, at best, trainees and students that are coming into a profession that are gonna look at the way that this is written, which, let's face it, it was written by lawyers and legislators, not by psychologists. And they're gonna go, what the heck is that? I don't know what that means. Okay, and someone behind them is gonna go, oh, that's what multicultural is, but you can't say multicultural in the state of Texas. That's what this is going to turn into. And they're gonna have no clue what we actually mean by this thing. They're gonna have no concept of what we're asking them to do. And I'm concerned that they're not going to know what we're asking for. So we've gone from one extreme to the other, which is we tried to get away from being too specific to being so broad that we don't know what the question is or what we're intending those hours to be. So I feel the intention, but also we have to give folks something to dig into.
I would agree with Dr. Becker in the sense that, and I think to your point, I think it was Daryl that you mentioned the FAQs. I think that would be really instrumental in taking that, the broad nature of the guideline and then, you know, and then giving examples of, you know, would this count, would this, you know, would be acceptable, would this meet this criteria or this, you know, the requirement. I don't think we can list everything and everyone. I think sometimes you're gonna have to get an email or a phone call if people really have a question about whether or not their particular, you know, deep in the woods sort of activity that they're wanting to do meets the criteria. I think that's just inevitable. But in terms of striking that balance between broadening it and you know, giving them some guidelines about what actually meets, you know, and I think that would be very, very helpful for people. And I'd be willing to vote, you know, along those lines.
We're getting all kinds of examples where, you know, they're removing certain exhibits at the Smithsonian. We're getting certain directives out of Washington, and I guess Governor Abbott is just going to go along with some of the stuff. So I guess I need to say that fighting political climate is a useless endeavor.
Is there any other discussion? Do we want to make a motion?
I motion that we adopt the rule as written with the addition of a section of frequently asked questions.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes. Next rule up is 465.38 psychological services for schools.
This was the update to the sort of definition of the practice of school psychology. It didn't expand the scope or change what folks are doing, but just modernize the language a little bit. No real, don't recall there being any significant comments on this one.
Yeah, and again, to reiterate, you know, it only clarifies the rule for the public. It doesn't impact practice or create a barrier to entry. So I'm all for it.
Is there any discussion on the proposed rule?
I move to adopt 465.38.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes. So proposal of rules 465.2 supervision.
All right, this adds a few details to supervision. It requires supervisors to establish a plan for the custody and control of records in the event that they incapacity or death. It also clarifies that if a licensee is being supervised and there's a complaint filed against them, they need to give that complaint to the supervisor, because the supervisor may be implicated, and certainly would hope the supervisor can help them reform their practice. And then it adds a concept that has been successful generally in the other professions, which is if someone is under supervision and the supervisor identifies that there is some deficiency in the skill of the person being supervised, they need to develop some sort of formal remediation plan of what this person should do to fix those deficiencies. We're trying to avoid the situation where a supervisor sees something wrong, is trying to get them to do better, but waits until the end of the postdoc year, for example, and then writes into the board and says, I have real reservations about this person continuing on. And we say, well, what did you do about that? Say, well, I talked to them, but nothing really ever changed. Well, to be fair to the supervisor and the supervisee, establishing a plan, deciding what needs to happen to address those deficiencies is necessary. And then lastly, it removes a requirement for supervisors to have a documentation of the supervisee's professional liability insurance coverage. It's fine if the supervisor does that, but we felt like we don't need to, as a matter of rule, require every supervisor to have this documentation for every case. It's not something that we check on. So that's 465-2.
Motion to adopt.
Well, is there any discussion before we make any motions? Just want to make sure everybody's.
I'm just thinking about it from the supervisee's standpoint. Sorry, just to be clear, the supervisee's professional liability insurance coverage, if any. So just trying to understand this. So you are requiring that the supervisee have insurance coverage.
It's really, it's really just for LSSPs, and it was requiring the supervisor to keep a document that largely not relevant to the supervisor. So, and it doesn't change any coverage requirements or anything like that. It's just about the supervision file.
Is there any other discussion on this?
Motion to adopt.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adoption, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstaining? And it passes. And the last one on the list.
We worked so hard to get there with that.
And 465-34 is an amendment to the language describing what should happen when there are multiple providers seeing the same patient. The language surrounding each board had slightly different language about that coordination. It's actually came out in our rule review. Really appreciate the public comment that identified this, because they pointed out it actually required that I don't remember exactly, but a social worker was required to notify a psychologist. A psychologist was only required to notify and offer to consult, where a counselor was required to consult, but the social worker wasn't. So it set up this weird dynamic where maybe one person was required, but the other person wasn't, could ignore them. So we felt like harmonizing the language to say everybody needs to inform the other professional what's going on, and you should all strive to work together. You're all adults, you're all mental health providers, but it's not, we're not gonna slap your wrist if you don't get along with each other.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the proposal?
I just have a quick question. Is this language, when we were talking about this in rules, one of the things was trying to get consistent language across all of the boards with this. Do we know, is this being perpetuated in all of the boards so that this will be consistent across all of the boards?
Yes.
Okay, so, because I think that was part of the essential part of this rule, was to have all three boards.
It's one of the
Four
things,
boards be the
it's one of the
same.
things we'll look at BHEC is to,
Okay,
if that doesn't happen, then we'll probably have to press pause on it at BHEC. That way
Okay.
we don't have somebody making changes in anticipation or reliance upon another board that in fact didn't do it, because
perfect.
that'll foul things up even worse. So
Yes, because I remember that was our big conversation when we were talking about this at rules. Okay,
that's something we watch at the council level to make sure.
action. In that case, I move to adopt.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes. Okay. Formal rule petition related to LSSP practice settings. Move to that.
This one, Ms. Makamal, if you're online, please raise your hand. I don't believe she's in attendance. In short, her petition that she provided is interested in the board essentially expanding the ability, the settings in which an LSSP may provide services. I believe her point was LSSPs are trained to give assessments. The board should allow them to provide those assessments as essentially a contract service to other mental health providers. That psychologist needs somebody assessed, they should be able to contract with an LSSP to provide that assessment. This is not currently allowed because LSSPs are limited to practice in the school setting. The reason that rule has been that way is that is the nature of the license as it was created and formed under the education code. It is, I don't know, Patrick, do you have thoughts about whether we could do this?
Yeah, I mean, the LSSP statute specifically says the rules of practice for a school psychologist must comply with the nationally recognized standards for the practice of school psychology. So my understanding of this, those are directed solely at schools and they're not focused on the practice outside of a school setting. So I don't, without further research, my general reading of it is no, I don't think that it would be allowed because the license is very specific. It's for a school setting and that's what the intent of the statute is. So the response to that is that's why we made changes to the LPA rule. And so most likely if you have an LSSP, you will likely be able to qualify for an LPA. So I would.
I had a comment on that too. I just, in premise, there's aspects of this that I like, but the one area I don't like would be that if like an LPC supervising an LSSP, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They don't have the assessment training anyway. I mean, some have been trained in it, but like the formal training to be supervising such cases. And so that aspect of it, I would, I would kind of take issue just in terms of an LPC supervising in private practice and LSSP for testing and evaluations.
I was really, yeah, sorry, go ahead, keep going.
I also saw that to be a little ambiguous, having, and he's also, he's equating an LP with an LPC there.
I was gonna bump on the same thing you did, Ryan, which wasn't that the whole purpose of why we were working at remediation and the sort of the translation of being able to move from an LSP to an LPA was to accommodate this very thing, right? Was to allow folks to more easily close the gap in what they were missing in their education and so forth, to be able to gain the licensure to do that thing. So it kind of, I don't know, this just feels icky.
I think I had exactly the same comment whenever Mr. Hyde was talking about just that thought we already did something to kind of accommodate this with the LBA portion, but then to the other point of could we even do it in the first place? Yeah.
I have a couple of points of opposition that I see. I think psychologists can do assessments. I think there's already a need that's already being filled. But also when you get to psychological testing, there are, I mean, to use your technical term, icky, it gets very convoluted. It gets very convoluted when, say, for example, somebody's doing personality testing or a Rorschach or a, Robertson sort of more projective tests. It's very difficult for us as a board to try to supervise and make sure those are distinctive and they don't bleed over into each other. That's a huge burden on us.
We need to make motions with this.
Yeah, is this a motion or is this?
We would need a motion to, so the petition itself doesn't exactly meet the letter of the law in terms of being an actionable petition, because it doesn't have rule language we could propose. Really, we need the board to formally deny it regardless.
Okay.
And then the question is just, do you then instruct us to pursue the matter anyway as a rule? Or
I'd like to formally move to deny this petition.
I second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and so we'll move to deny it, and then we'll follow up with instruction.
Action.
I'm sorry.
Take no further
Yeah.
action.
Okay, perfect. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? All abstaining? Okay. P update.
So just wanted to give everyone an update. I serve on the ASPPB's CITF. I don't remember exactly what that stands for. Committee on Integrating Fun. I don't know. Thanks for fun, yeah. But and oddly enough, it's the committee about communication, so you'd think I'd remember.
Is
the
it
name.
integrating EPPP Part 1 and EPPP Part 2?
Yes.
Okay, I
And
think
so,
that's where that.
yes, it's the, and so the ASPPB is proceeding down their changed goal to not have two tests, but instead integrate the Part 1 and Part 2 into a singular test. They have held some town halls with the membership boards, so the regulatory boards. They are going to have more town halls throughout the year to get feedback about how people are feeling and thinking about the test, including a town hall for general licensees, but also one focused on clinical programs and training programs. I will say they are still very committed to the idea that the new test needs to test competency as well as knowledge. Skill as well as knowledge. That their goal is to have a singular test that is administered in one setting, one fee, and that assesses overall the competency to be an entry-level psychologist. That is their stated goal. At this time, we don't know how much that is going to cost, and we don't know exactly what the content will look like. There's a separate committee doing the building of the test itself. I will say on the positive side of things, they are using the standard creation process for a test. They are doing a job task analysis. They are getting experts in the field to write questions. They are vetting those questions. They are tying every question to the psychometric measures, etc. So they're doing all of that. So personally, I don't have any concerns about the test validity as a test. The question still remains, from a regulatory perspective, is it the test that we as Texas are going to want to use? Is there flexibility for different states to use it for their own purposes, to adjust to their own needs, or will it be a one-size-fits-all, everyone must pass at this level? Those questions are still up in the air. Certainly, I encourage anybody listening to attend and participate in those town halls. We as Texas, I am trying to communicate to ASPPB that flexibility is really a key component that needs to be built in. That one of the things we pushed back on was the idea that a one-size-fits-all test is not the way to go. That allowing for mobility is one desire, but it is not. It should be paired with other needs. And At this stage, I will say I'm not confident that they share that desire for flexible use. I think they very much see commonality and universality and mobility as the more important factors. But that's where we are right now. We are still waiting for the budget process to be finalized to see what next steps we may or may not take in terms of pursuing our own exam.
So that was gonna be my question. Is there any update on the budget process and where we are with that?
So we had amended our request to be focused on just enough funds to start the development, to design what the test should look like. And we would do that in conjunction with other states to really make sure what we're doing is something that could be adopted by other groups. The money for that was in the Senate version of the bill, but was not in the House. The two are currently in a conference committee where they're ironing out those details. Admittedly, it is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of the budget, $125,000. So if I were a betting man, I would bet on us receiving that money and being able to pursue the design of a new test. But until they come out with the budget, we won't know for sure.
Just a question. And you know, one size fits all, that's always been kind of a concern that we have here in Texas. And our responsibility really is to look for the citizens of Texas, look out for them, and psychologists in Texas coming into the field. I just posed the question, given the fact that it's going to be a combined skill and knowledge test, in designing our own test, do we need to consider any modifications to make it a comparable test?
So we certainly would. That would be part of the discussion for the folks that we sit down with, is what, and a discussion with y'all as board members, is what do we consider necessary for the test to test? Does it need to test skills to some extent? One thing I'll say about the integrated test, and granted, I'm not a psychologist, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but from what I've gathered from all of this good discussion, I think we sort of have done a disservice by talking about it as knowledge and skills. Because ultimately what we're talking about is a objective written exam. It's not a practical skills demonstration. And so what we're really talking about is academic knowledge and practical knowledge. That's really what's being tested and integrated. And that's what I think ASPPB is trying to transition to, language about competency rather than knowledge and skills. It's really just how competent you are. So what they are integrating, and what we may want to consider, is instead of simply asking, what does the WAYS 5, 6, not sure what we're on now, 4? What is the WAYS 4 used for? What does it test? Well, that's an academic knowledge question. What does it do? They are integrating questions like, if you got this score on a WAYS 4, what would that tell you? Or what would your next steps be? And so I think they are trying to bring in that skills component, but it is still what I would consider practical knowledge, you're not literally doing it. So to that end, I think we would absolutely have interest in making sure that if we pursue our own test, it encompasses all of that kind of knowledge, all of the knowledge that you as the board would deem necessary for entry-level practice.
Yeah, I think it would be very painful if we were to go ahead and do this, and I think we are, everything I've heard, is that we go forward, pursue all of this, take on this huge endeavor, and then it's seen as a kind of substandard test.
Well, and I think the point about doing this in tandem with what ASPPB is doing and figuring out what they're doing with the EPPP. I mean, I think that the best option out there is still that we get the flexibility that we need from them on the EPPB, and they let us, do all the stuff we were asking for. It sounds like they are kind of giving a little ground on some of that. They, eliminated the January of 26 start date for all that. But need to.
And that's what I think the conversations that is still to be had is how will ASPPB implement an integrated EPPB for the non-typical candidates? So not just standard APA accredited program going to be a psychologist. What about non-traditional program students? What about master's level use of the exam? Is it just the same score? Is it just a lower score? How do people use it for other situations? And I don't think that's answered yet.
Hey, Robert, is there any other discussion or comments on this? Okay, seeing none, we will move to the final parts of our meeting today. So item 10 is selection of TSBEP vice chair. I'm going to request to everyone that we table this for the time being until the time that the governor does officially appoint a chair. I think that would probably be the prudent move. I mean, let me ask the attorneys on that, I guess, but I think that'd probably be prudent to wait on the governor to appoint someone before we start voting on vice chairs.
I think that's probably the best way, unless there is an objection or a board member wants to have a voted on member right now. The way you're serving right now is kind of it's by consent, if you will, of the body, if you will. So if somebody were uncomfortable with that, then okay, then we could go ahead and do an election. But otherwise, I feel like probably it's better to wait for the chair to be established first, and then y'all vote who the vice chair will be after that.
Seems reasonable.
And that's, you're gonna hurt my feelings if you don't want to do it that way, but
No, I think that's probably the prudent move, I would say. Okay, so we'll table that. Next is selection of TSBEP council member. Since Mr. Blamowitz had been serving as our public member that was going to BHEC, there is now a vacancy for that. So I would entertain any motions or recommendations for a public member for council over BHEC.
I nominate Ryan Bridges.
I second that motion.
Sure.
walked into that one, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah. Does that need to be voted on, or, yeah, okay. All those in favor of sending me to BHEC, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? And that passes. So I'll get to hang out with you more.
Sounds good.
I was gonna say, John, it's a party over there. Let's get ready.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you all for the confidence for that. So I look forward to serving and appreciate the recommendation there. Recommendations for agenda items for the next meeting. I do think, just personally, we should probably have an expanded conversation on the university issue. We continue to have these issues with Walden in particular. I think that's the most glaring example, but I thought I saw UNT pop up a couple times today with concerns about undergrad programs and possibly the way that they were selling their undergrad translating into grad. I think there's a much more expanded conversation there, and it's one that we continue to keep towing the line on. I think it might be worth it to actually add it as an agenda item. I don't know what y'all think, though.
Do we say in that next meeting, but the meeting after that? 'Cause
for this item, y'all don't need to vote on anything. Y'all can simply say stuff and we will write it down. And we will, if we need extra time, we will talk to the chair about postponing it to the next meeting.
I think we still have the discussion on it, and then if there's a report that needs to be made, then we can add that for the following meeting. I think this will be an ongoing conversation, but rather than postpone, I think we have a conversation. So, are there any other recommendations for agenda items? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Moved and seconded. Thank you all for y'all's time today. Thank you all for putting up with me over here today. So.
Actually look quite good.
Yeah.
Now y'all. Everything else. Thank you guys. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all, everyone that was online today.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Take it easy.
Bye, dear.
Good summer.